The espresso machine in my office made a soft humming sound as I read the email for the third time. It was from my ex-husband, David, asking for a meeting. 2 years after he walked out of my life, he was reaching out to me. "Emily, please," the email said. "I know I don't deserve your time, but my company is in trouble. I need investors who understand the business. Just 1 hour of your time." I looked at the stock ticker on my computer screen. Richardson Technology, David's company, had dropped another 15%. His company wasn't just struggling, it was failing fast. "Miss Bennett," my assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom. "Your 10 a.m. appointment is here." "Thank you, Sarah, give me 2 minutes." I closed the email without replying and straightened my silk blouse. The view from my corner office reminded me how far I'd come since the night David left. "She makes me feel young again," he had said as he packed his bags. I stood in the bedroom doorway, watching him. "Jessica understands me in ways you never did." I didn't say a word. I just watched as he took his expensive watches, his fancy suits, and his golf clubs. He left behind 20 years of marriage and the woman who had helped him build his company from nothing. What he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for months. I had seen the signs, late nights at the office, strange text messages, and a sudden interest in staying fit at 45. I had seen this happen to other executives' wives, but unlike them, I didn't cry or beg. I didn't throw his things out the window or scratch his precious Tesla. Instead, I got everything in order. My name is Emily Bennett, and while my husband was busy with his 24-year-old mistress, I was busy turning his biggest mistake into my greatest success. The first sign of trouble had come 8 months before he left. At a charity event, I watched Jessica, his new marketing coordinator, touch his arm and laugh at his jokes. She was beautiful in an obvious way, long blonde hair, perfect makeup, and a designer dress probably bought with her company card. But it wasn't her attention to David that caught my eye. It was the way she studied the room, noting which executives were there and which connections mattered. She wasn't just a pretty face, she was ambitious. That night, I went home and opened my laptop. 20 years of marriage to a tech CEO had taught me more than just how to host dinner parties. I knew the industry inside and out. I had sat through countless strategy meetings and had edited every major proposal David had ever written. I also knew his weaknesses. David had always focused on hardware, servers, networks, and infrastructure. He thought software was just support, but I had been watching the market. The future wasn't in boxes and wires. It was in cloud services, in the invisible systems that made everything work. So, while David wined and dined his young girlfriend, I started making calls, first to Janet Chen, my old roommate from business school, who now ran a venture capital firm. She sounded surprised to hear from me. "It's been ages. How are you?" "I'm about to be divorced," I said calmly, "and I have a business idea for you." We met for coffee the next day. I explained my plan, a software company specializing in AI-driven cloud management. It would work with companies like David's but would eventually make them outdated. Janet listened, took notes, and asked smart questions. At the end, she smiled, a smile I remembered from our college days. It meant she saw an opportunity. "Your company will compete directly with Richardson Technologies," she said. "Eventually," I agreed, "but by then, it'll be too late for them." That afternoon, she gave me $2 million in seed funding. I hired the best developers I could find, even taking some from David's company. They came willingly. It turned out I wasn't the only one who saw that David's company was falling behind. The divorce was quick and easy. David thought I was just a trophy wife who had gotten too old. He didn't look too closely at my new consulting business. He gave me the house and a fair settlement in exchange for my shares in his company. I signed the papers with the Mont Blanc pen he had given me for our 15th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. By the time the ink dried, my new company, Bennett Digital Solutions, was already working on its first product. While David posted Instagram photos of his Hawaiian vacation with Jessica, I was in meetings with clients who were tired of old, clunky systems. Now, 2 years later, I sat in my corner office in downtown Seattle, running a company worth over $50 million. Our cloud management software was changing the industry, and Richardson Technologies was losing clients, many of them to us. There was a knock at my door. "Come in," I said. Lisa Chin, Janet's daughter and my head of business development, walked in with a tablet. "You're going to want to see this," she said, placing it on my desk. I looked at the screen and smiled. Richardson Technology's stock had dropped another 10% in the last hour. It was now worth less than a quarter of what it was 2 years ago. "Word is they're looking for investors," Lisa said. Rumor has it David's been trying to find backers, but no one's interested. They all say the same thing, his company is too far behind. I picked up my phone and opened David's email again. Should I meet with him? It would be satisfying to see him struggle, to watch him realize that the wife he left behind had become the powerful CEO he always wanted to be. But I had a board meeting in an hour and a client presentation after that. My time was valuable now. Sarah, I said through the intercom, please reply to Mr. Richardson's email. Tell him I don't have time for meetings about struggling companies, but he's welcome to send an investment proposal through our usual channels. Lisa grinned, cold. No, I said, standing up to get ready for the board meeting, just business. I was looking over our quarterly numbers when Sarah buzzed again. Miss Bennett, Mr. Richardson is here. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's insisting on seeing you. I checked the security feed on my computer. David was in the reception area, looking much less polished than I remembered. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his hair, usually perfect, looked messy. The golden Rolex he always wore was gone. Interesting. How long has he been waiting? I asked, even though I could see the time on the security feed. 20 minutes, Sarah said. Should I call security? I thought about it for a moment. Part of me wanted to let him wait out there, maybe even have him escorted out. But another part of me, the part that had spent 20 years learning business strategies, knew this was an opportunity. Give him 5 more minutes, I said, then send him in. I used those 5 minutes to make sure I looked perfect. I smoothed my hair, touched up my lipstick, and adjusted my Hermes scarf, the one I bought to celebrate our first $1 million in revenue. When Sarah finally brought him in, I was sitting at my desk, reading reports as if his presence didn't matter much. Emily, he said, his voice sounding desperate, thank you for seeing me. I looked up slowly, taking my time to notice him. David, you look well, I said, though it wasn't true. Up close, he looked worse. There were new wrinkles around his eyes, and his hand shook slightly as he held his briefcase. Can we skip the small talk? He asked, sitting down in one of the chairs without waiting for me to invite him. You know why I'm here. Actually, I don't, I replied calmly. My assistant told me you don't have an appointment, and I'm very busy running my company. Unlike some CEOs, I don't waste time on unplanned meetings. He winced at the jab but kept going. Richardson Technologies needs money, fast. We're working on new products, but the market is changing. Moving toward cloud-based solutions and AI, I added. Yes, he said, trying to smile but it looked more like a frown. That's why I'm here. We need investors who understand the business. 15 million would give us enough time to make the changes we need. I picked up a pen, the Mont Blanc he gave me during our divorce, and tapped it on my desk. Why should I invest in a company that's clearly failing? Your reports show falling profits, losing clients, and no clear plan for the future. His eyes widened. You've been following our numbers? I follow all our competitors, I said smoothly. It's just good business. Competitors? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Emily, be serious. You run a small software company. We're in completely different leagues. I turned my computer screen toward him, showing a graph of our stock prices over the past 2 years, his dropping, mine rising. Are we? I asked quietly, because from where I sit, David, one of us is running a successful tech company worth $50 million, and the other is begging for money to save a failing business. Care to guess which is which? His face turned pale as he looked at the graph. This is Bennett Digital? Your company? My company, I confirmed. The one you called a hobby during our divorce. The one that's been taking your clients for the past 18 months. The one that just signed a deal with Microsoft worth more than your entire company. He slumped in his chair, his briefcase falling to the floor. Papers spilled out, financial reports, plans to save the company. I saw a bank statement showing his account was almost empty. What happened to your Rolex? I asked, already knowing the answer. He rubbed his bare wrist. Had to sell it. Jessica, she likes expensive things. Ah, yes, Jessica, how is she? Still making you feel young? His silence said it all. I'd heard she left him 6 months ago for a younger, more successful CEO. Emily, he said finally, his voice rough. I know I don't deserve your help, but 20 years of marriage must mean something. Please, just look at our proposal. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. In the reflection, I could see him watching me, a mix of hope and desperation on his face. 20 years of marriage, I repeated softly. You're right, David, it does mean something. He sat up a little straighter, a hint of his old confidence returning. It means, I continued, turning to face him, that I got the most expensive business education possible. And now you want me to invest in the company you're running into the ground, the same company you wouldn't let me help manage because wives should stay out of business. David stood up, his desperation turning to anger. So this is revenge? You built all this just to destroy me? I laughed, the sound echoing in the room. Oh, David, not everything is about you. I built this company because I saw where the industry was going while you were busy chasing youth. I succeeded because I understood what clients needed while you were stuck in the past. Your failure is just collateral damage. Collateral damage? He snapped. 300 people work for me, Emily, real people with families and bills. Do they deserve to be collateral damage? I picked up my tablet and opened a file. You mean like Angela Chin in accounting? Or Mark Rivera in development? Or the other 50 employees who've already joined Bennett Digital? His face turned pale. We've been quietly hiring your best people for months. I explained. We offer better pay, better benefits, and a future. By the end of the quarter, we'll have hired everyone worth keeping. The rest? That's just business. He sank back into the chair, all confidence gone. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from the best. I replied. You taught me that business is business. Remember when you said our marriage was underperforming and you needed a younger model? There was a knock at the door. Lisa walked in with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but the board is waiting. And that other matter we talked about, it's done. I nodded. Thank you, Lisa, I'll be right there. I turned back to David. I'm afraid our time is up. Please, he said, making one last attempt. What am I supposed to do? I sat back down at my desk and pulled out a folder. Actually, I have a proposal for you. His eyes lit up with hope, but I quickly crushed it. Bennett Digital will buy Richardson Technology's assets at market value, which, given your stock price, is about 10 cents on the dollar. Your shareholders get something instead of nothing. Your employees get job security. And you, I slid the folder across the desk. You get to retire with some dignity. He opened the folder with shaky hands, reading the terms. This is a hostile takeover. No, David, I said. This is mercy. You have 24 hours to accept. After that, we'll wait for bankruptcy and buy what's left for even less. As security led him out, I caught my reflection in the window, confident, powerful, unstoppable, not bad for a woman he thought was too old. The board meeting was quick and successful, our numbers were great, and everyone was excited about taking over Richardson Technology. That evening, as I packed up my office, I found an old photo in my desk drawer, our wedding day. 22 years ago, we looked so young and full of hope. David was smiling at the camera, and I was looking at him with love. Miss Bennett, Sarah said, appearing at the door, your car is here, and Mr. Richardson's office called, they've accepted the offer. I dropped the photo into the shredder. Thank you, Sarah, please have legal start the paperwork first thing tomorrow. On my way out, I passed the wall of awards and news articles in the reception area. Bennett Digital revolutionizes cloud management. Emily Bennett named CEO of the year. Local tech company hits $50 million valuation. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. Heard about Richardson. Drinks to celebrate? I smiled and replied, can't tonight. Early meeting tomorrow. Taking over an old tech company, nothing major. As my driver drove through Seattle's evening traffic, I thought about the past 2 years, the late nights, the risks, the moments of doubt, but mostly, I thought about the night David left, thinking he was leaving me with nothing. He'd been wrong about so many things, about business, about age, about what makes a person valuable, but his biggest mistake was underestimating the woman who had spent 20 years learning how to succeed in this industry. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. You won. Are you happy now? D. I typed back 3 words, just getting started. Then I blocked his number and turned back to the quarterly projections for our newest division. There was still so much to build, so much to achieve, and unlike David, I wasn't interested in looking back. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't just success, it's success so complete that your enemies become footnotes in your story. David had wanted a younger woman, he got his wish, but he'd forgotten that experience, wisdom, and determination often beat youth. As my car pulled up to my penthouse, I caught my reflection in the lobby windows. At 42, I didn't see an aging woman past her prime. I saw a CEO, a visionary, a force to be reckoned with. The security guard tipped his hat. Evening, Miss Bennett, another late night? I smiled, thinking of the empire I'd built from the ashes of David's betrayal. Actually, Jim, I'm just getting started. And I was. Because the sweetest part of success isn't proving others wrong, it's proving yourself right.
The doorbell chimed 3 times in rapid succession, followed by aggressive knocking that made my coffee mug rattle. I already knew who it was. Only one person had that particular way of announcing their presence, like they were declaring war on my front door. "Coming?" I called out, quickly smoothing down my shirt. My name is Danielle, and I was about to face my own personal nightmare, my mother-in-law, Sabrina. When I opened the door, there she stood in all her glory, perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit, with not one but 3 massive suitcases beside her. "Danielle, dear," she said, air-kissing both my cheeks. You look tired. Are you getting enough sleep? That's not helping your situation, you know." Before I could respond, she was already directing the poor Uber driver to bring her luggage inside. My stomach dropped at the sight of those bags. This wasn't a casual visit. "Sabrina, we weren't expecting you," I managed to say, watching helplessly as her belongings invaded my carefully organized foyer. "Corbin didn't mention you were coming." "Oh, that's because I didn't tell him," she replied breezily, already making her way to our guest room like she owned the place. I decided it was time for an intervention. 2 years of marriage and still no grandchildren? Something needs to be done. I followed her upstairs, my hands clenching and unclenching. "We've talked about this, Corbin and I have been trying." She cut in, making air quotes. Yes, but clearly you need help. That's why I'm here. I've brought some special herbs from my naturopath, and I've scheduled appointments with the best fertility specialist in the city." I stood in the doorway, watching her unpack like she was settling in for a month-long siege. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Lucille. "Coffee in 20? Need to tell you something." "I have plans," I said, already backing away. "With a friend." Sabrina looked up from her suitcase, her eyes narrowing. "More important than family planning?" "It's work-related," I lied. "Very urgent. I'll be back in a couple of hours." I practically ran down the stairs, grabbing my keys and purse. As I started the car, I could see Sabrina watching from the guest room window, probably already planning ways to fix my apparently broken body. The coffee shop was my sanctuary, and Lucille was already there with 2 steaming mugs waiting. One look at my face and she knew. "Spill it," she said, sliding my vanilla latte closer. "She's here, with luggage, 3 suitcases worth of luggage," I groaned, collapsing into the chair. "And she's brought herbs, Lucille." "Oh God," Lucille winced. "The fertility crusade continues?" "She doesn't know when to stop," I said, lowering my voice. "And we can't tell her about the adoption plans yet. It would break her traditional little heart, and probably Corbin's chances of ever having peace again." "Speaking of the adoption," Lucille leaned forward. "That's actually why I wanted to meet. I just heard from my contact at the agency. There's a little girl, 8 years old. Her name is Leah." My heart skipped a beat. "Tell me everything." "She's amazing, Danny. Smart, funny, been through some tough times, but still has the biggest heart. They think you and Corbin would be perfect for her." I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. This was what we'd been waiting for, planning for in secret, and now Sabrina was camping out in our house, probably burning sage and mixing fertility potions. My phone buzzed again, Corbin this time. "Mom just called. Why didn't you tell me she was coming?" "Because I didn't know," I typed back furiously. "Your mother has staged a fertility intervention. Help." "On my way home," he replied. "Try not to kill her before I get there?" I looked at Lucille, who was watching me with sympathy. "I have to go back, don't I?" "Unless you want to move in with me," she offered with a small smile, "though I suspect she'd find you there too." Standing up, I squared my shoulders. If she only knew that while she's trying to fix me, we're about to make her a grandmother in a way she never expected. Just hold on to that thought, Lucille said, giving my hand a squeeze. It'll make all her meddling easier to bear. As I drove home, I could see Sabrina through the living room window, rearranging my furniture according to what I assumed were her feng shui principles. This was going to be a long week, or however long those 3 suitcases were planning to stay. Little did she know I had a secret weapon, the knowledge that somewhere out there, a little girl named Leah was waiting to make our family complete, in a way no amount of herbs or fertility treatments ever could. Quick, she's in the shower, I whispered urgently to Corbin, tugging him toward the basement door. The adoption paperwork wasn't going to review itself, and these stolen moments were all we had now. The basement lights flickered on, revealing our makeshift office, a card table covered with documents, photos, and dreams of our future family. 3 days into Sabrina's surprise stay, and we'd gotten pretty good at this cloak and dagger routine. Leah's caseworker sent over the final forms, Corbin said, pulling papers from his briefcase. We need to sign these tonight. The sound of running water upstairs was our timer. I grabbed a pen, scanning the documents as quickly as possible while still being thorough. This was too important to rush. Did you see what Mom did to the kitchen? Corbin asked, his voice tight. She's hung dried herbs everywhere, says they promote fertility. Oh, I saw, and smelled, and sneezed. I replied, initialing another page. Don't forget the fertility goddess statue she placed in our bedroom. I'm sorry about all this, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I should talk to her. The water stopped. We froze, looking at each other in panic. Danielle, Corbin? Sabrina's voice called from upstairs. Where are you two? We scrambled to gather the papers. Corbin shoved them back into his briefcase just as footsteps approached the basement door. The handle jiggled. Why is this door locked? Sabrina's voice was sharp with suspicion. Just organizing some old boxes, I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. Lots of dust down here. You wouldn't want to ruin your outfit. Nonsense, I can help. Open the door. Corbin gave me a desperate look. I pointed to the storage boxes we'd actually been meaning to organize. He nodded, quickly pulling them out while I ran up the stairs. Opening the door, I came face to face with Sabrina, her hair wrapped in a towel and wearing what looked like a very expensive silk robe. See? Just boxes, I gestured behind me. Corbin's trying to find his old baseball cards. She peered past me, eyes narrowing. In the dark, I flicked on the stairwell light, mentally kicking myself for not noticing we'd turned everything off in our panic. Found them, Corbin called up, waving a dusty shoebox. My husband, the quick thinker. Well, since you're both free now, Sabrina said, clapping her hands together, I've organized a little gathering for tonight. Just a few close friends who specialize in alternative medicine and fertility treatments. My stomach dropped. Tonight? But we have nothing that can't be rescheduled, she interrupted. This is about family, Danielle, our family's future. I felt my phone vibrate, probably Freddie, my brother, checking if I was still sane. I'd been texting him hourly updates about Operation Survive Sabrina. I'll start preparing the house, Sabrina continued, already walking away. We'll need to rearrange the living room for the healing circle. The moment she was out of earshot, Corbin emerged from the basement, briefcase clutched to his chest like a shield. Healing circle? Your mother is trying to sage me into pregnancy, I whispered back. We need backup. I'm calling Freddie. 10 minutes later, I was hiding in the pantry with my phone. Fred, I'm dying here. She's invited her whole fertility cult over. Want me to create a diversion? My brother offered. I could fake an emergency. No, I need you here. Come to the gathering. Bring wine. Lots of wine. You're not supposed to drink while trying to conceive, he said in a perfect imitation of Sabrina's voice. Freddie. Kidding, I'll be there. Want me to accidentally spill something on her healing crystals? Despite everything, I laughed. Just hurry. Emerging from the pantry, I found Sabrina had already transformed our living room into something between a new age shop and a fertility temple. Crystals everywhere, candles burning, and was that incense? The energy in here was all wrong, she explained, seeing my expression. No wonder you're having troubles. But don't worry. By the end of tonight, we'll have your chakras aligned and your womb ready for my grandchild. I caught Corbin's eye across the room. He was standing by the basement door, one hand protectively on his briefcase, looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I couldn't blame him. If only Sabrina knew that while she was preparing to cleanse my chakras, we were preparing to welcome an 8-year-old girl into our lives. A little girl who needed a family far more than Sabrina needed a biological grandchild. The doorbell rang, the first of Sabrina's fertility experts arriving. I took a deep breath, remembering Leah's photo tucked safely away in the basement. We just had to get through this night. And maybe, just maybe, Freddie would actually spill that wine on something important. Sunday brunch was Sabrina's latest battlefield strategy. She'd invited the entire family, including her sister and niece, Leah, the same name as our potential adoptive daughter, which felt like the universe playing some cosmic joke. More mimosa? Freddie whispered, appearing at my elbow with the bottle. He'd been my saving grace through this whole ordeal, keeping my glass full and my sanity intact. Please, I muttered, watching Sabrina arrange place settings with military precision, though I probably shouldn't. According to last night's fertility priestess, alcohol is poison to my baby-making chances. Speaking of chances, Sabrina announced loudly, making everyone at the table jump. I have a wonderful suggestion for Corbin and Danielle. My fork clattered against the plate. Corbin reached for my hand under the table. As you all know, my dear niece Leah needs a stable home environment, Sabrina continued, gesturing to the quiet 8-year-old sitting at the far end of the table. And since Danielle and Corbin are struggling, perhaps fostering Leah would be the perfect solution. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at the young girl, who looked up from her pancakes with wide eyes. This Leah had the same dark curls as our Leah, the same uncertain smile. Mom, Corbin started, but Sabrina steamrolled over him. It makes perfect sense. You can practice being parents, and Leah gets a loving home. Who knows, maybe the act of nurturing will jumpstart your fertility. Sabrina, her sister Jane interrupted, we haven't discussed this. Excuse me, I said, pushing back from the table. The room was spinning slightly. I need some air. I fled to the back porch, gripping the railing until my knuckles turned white. The door opened behind me and small footsteps approached. Are you okay? A tiny voice asked. I turned to find Leah, Sabrina's Leah, standing there, holding a napkin-wrapped pancake. I brought you breakfast, she said, offering it to me. You didn't finish yours. Thank you, I managed, taking the slightly sticky package. That's very thoughtful of you. She leaned against the railing beside me, kicking her feet against the deck. Aunt Sabrina talks a lot about babies. I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, she certainly does. I don't want to be your practice baby, she said suddenly, looking up at me with serious eyes. That's what she meant, right? Using me to practice? My heart cracked a little. No one should ever be used as practice, I said firmly. You deserve a family who wants you for you, not as a test run. The door opened again, and Corbin stepped out. Everything okay out here? We're having a pancake party, I said, holding up my napkin. Want to join? He sat down on the steps, and Leah surprised us both by plopping down next to him. Your mom is intense. she informed him matter-of-factly. Corbin choked on a laugh. Yeah, she really is. Inside, we could hear Sabrina and Jane arguing in heated whispers. Freddie's voice occasionally cut through, probably trying to mediate. Do you want kids? Leah asked suddenly, looking between us. For real, not practice ones? Corbin and I exchanged glances. Yes, I said softly. We really do. She nodded sagely. You'd be good at it. You didn't talk to me like I'm stupid. Most grown-ups do that. Before we could respond, Sabrina burst onto the porch. There you all are. We're discussing important family matters, and you're out here eating cold pancakes? We're bonding, Leah announced, standing up. And they don't want to practice on me. They want real kids. Sabrina's face went through several interesting expressions before settling on something between confusion and frustration. Well, of course they want real. I mean, you are real. I just thought, I think we're done here, Jane said firmly, appearing behind her sister. Leah, honey, get your jacket. We're going home. As they left, Leah turned back to give us a small wave. I waved back, fighting tears. Well, Sabrina huffed once they'd gone. That could have gone better, but don't worry, I have other ideas. Mom, Corbin cut in, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in days. Enough, please, she blinked at him, startled. I'm only trying to help. By ambushing us? By trying to use a child as some kind of fertility experiment? I couldn't keep the anger from my voice anymore. That's not help, Sabrina. That's control. She drew herself up, nostrils flaring. Well, if you had a better plan for giving me grandchildren, maybe we do, I snapped, then immediately bit my tongue. Corbin's hand found mine again, squeezing hard. Sabrina's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? But I was already turning away, pulling Corbin with me. We had a different Leah waiting for us, one who wouldn't be anyone's practice run. And suddenly, keeping that secret felt more like a burden than a shield. The children's home was quieter than I expected, filled with afternoon sunlight and crayon drawings on the walls. Our Leah sat cross-legged on a beanbag chair, a book open in her lap, dark curls falling over her face, just like in her photo. She loves to read, Ms. Martinez, the social worker, whispered, especially adventure stories. I watched as Leah turned a page, completely absorbed in her world of words. When she finally looked up and saw us, her whole face lit up with recognition from our previous visits. You came back! She jumped up, the book tumbling forgotten to the floor. We promised we would, I said, kneeling down to her level. What are you reading today? Harry Potter. I'm at the part where... She launched into an elaborate explanation of Hogwarts houses and magical creatures, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. Corbin sat down on the floor, and Leah immediately included him in her story, asking which house he thought he'd be in. I watched them interact, my heart so full it hurt. Would you like to go to the park? I asked when she finally paused for breath. Ms. Martinez said we could take you out for ice cream, too. Really? Her eyes widened. Can I get 2 scoops? 3 if you want, Corbin said, earning himself a high five. The playground was almost empty when we arrived. Leah made a beeline for the swings, calling over her shoulder, "Push me, both of you." We spent the next hour watching her conquer every piece of equipment, her laughter echoing across the park. When she finally slowed down, we walked to the ice cream shop, where she carefully selected chocolate, strawberry, and mint chip. 1 for each scoop. You have ice cream on your nose, I laughed, reaching out with a napkin. She scrunched up her face but let me wipe it off. My friend Maria says you're going to be my new mom and dad, she said suddenly, looking between us. Is that true? I felt Corbin tense beside me. We'd been working toward this moment, but it still caught us off guard. We'd like to be, I said carefully. if that's something you'd want to. She stirred her melting ice cream thoughtfully. Would I have my own room? Absolutely, Corbin nodded. You could decorate it however you want. And could I bring my books? Every single one, I promised. She seemed to consider this deeply. What about your mom? She asked, looking at Corbin. The one who visits a lot? Maria says she heard the grown-ups talking about her. My stomach clenched. Of course, word about Sabrina's frequent visits to check on the adoption process had gotten around. She doesn't know about you yet, Corbin admitted. We're waiting for the right time to tell her. Is it because I'm not a baby? Leah's voice was small now, her ice cream forgotten. No, sweetheart. I reached across the table to take her hand. It's because you're so special that we want to make sure everything is perfect when we tell her. She's going to love you just as much as we do. Promise? Promise, Corbin and I said together. The rest of the afternoon passed too quickly. Back at the children's home, Leah hugged us both tightly before running inside to tell Maria about her 3-scoop ice cream adventure. We were halfway to the car when I heard Sabrina's voice. Well, what a surprise finding you here. She stood by her Mercedes, arms crossed, eyes sharp. My blood ran cold. Mom, what are you doing here? Corbin's voice cracked slightly. Following my instincts, she said, pushing away from her car. When you two kept sneaking off, I knew something was going on. But this, she gestured at the building behind us. This is what you've been hiding? Sabrina, we can explain. Explain what? That you're planning to adopt without even consulting me? That you're giving up on having a real family? She is real, I snapped, fury rising in my chest. Leah is more real and more precious than any of your fertility rituals or family planning schemes. Leah? Sabrina's eyes widened. You're not serious? That troubled little girl from brunch? Is this some kind of revenge because I suggested fostering her cousin? They're not even related, Corbin cut in. It's a different Leah, Mom, our Leah, and we're going to be her parents, whether you approve or not. Sabrina's face hardened. We'll see about that. I won't stand by and watch you make this mistake. There are other solutions, better solutions. No, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite my racing heart. There aren't, because Leah isn't a solution. She's our daughter, and if you can't accept that, then maybe it's time for you to go home. She stared at us for a long moment before getting into her car. As she drove away, I could see her on her phone, already making calls. She's going to try to stop this, Corbin said quietly. Let her try, I replied, thinking of Leah's smile, her ice cream-covered nose, her dreams of a room filled with books. Some things are worth fighting for. She's talking to divorce lawyers, Lucille said, sliding her phone across the cafe table to show me the text from her cousin who worked at a prestigious law firm. Apparently, she's looking into ways to prove you're destroying the family legacy or some nonsense. I stared at the message, my coffee growing cold. Can she even do that? We're both adults. She's trying to build a case that you've manipulated Corbin away from having real children. Lucille made air quotes with her fingers. It's ridiculous, but she's got money and connections. My phone buzzed. Another message from Sabrina. Having dinner at the house tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. We need to discuss the future of this family. She's not even staying at our house anymore, but she's still acting like she owns it. I groaned, showing Lucille the message. Then maybe it's time, Lucille said, leaning forward. Tell her everything, on your terms, before she digs up the information herself. Corbin's terrified it'll destroy his relationship with her forever. And what about your relationship with Leah? What about her future? The image of Leah's hopeful face flashed through my mind. We were supposed to visit her again tomorrow, but Sabrina's meddling was threatening everything. You're right, I said, standing up. I need to talk to Corbin. I found him in his office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. Mom's called 6 times today, he said without looking up. I know what we need to do, I said, perching on his desk. We need to tell her, tonight, everything. He finally met my eyes. She'll never forgive us. Maybe not, but Leah needs us to be brave for her. His phone rang again, Sabrina's face lighting up the screen. This time, he answered. Yes, Mom, we'll be there. No, just us. Because it's our house. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Fine, see you at 7. She's bringing reinforcements, he sighed after hanging up. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia. Perfect, I said, surprising him. Let's invite Freddie too, and Lucille. If she wants witnesses, we'll have our own. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Freddie arrived early, helping me stress clean the house while simultaneously trying to calm me down. Remember when we were kids, he said, dusting the mantel, and you were terrified to tell Mom you'd broken her favorite vase? But when you finally did, it wasn't nearly as bad as you'd imagined. This is slightly bigger than a vase, Fred. Same principle, though. Rip off the Band-Aid. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Sabrina swept in with her entourage, taking in the extra place settings with narrowed eyes. I thought I said family only, she said, spotting Lucille arranging wine glasses. They are family, I replied firmly. The kind we choose. Dinner was excruciating. Sabrina kept making pointed comments about bloodlines and family traditions, while Uncle Robert nodded sagely and Aunt Patricia clicked her tongue in disapproval. Finally, as dessert was served, Sabrina cleared her throat. I've been doing some research. So have we, Corbin interrupted, standing up. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. Mom, there's something you need to know. Sit down, dear. I'm not finished. No, Mom. For once, you're going to listen. He walked to his briefcase by the door and pulled out a folder. Danielle and I are adopting. We've been approved, and we've found our daughter. Her name is Leah. She's 8 years old, and she's amazing. The silence was absolute. Sabrina's face went from red to white to red again. This is what you've been hiding? She finally managed. This is why you've been sneaking around? We wanted to do this our way, I said, moving to stand beside Corbin. Without pressure, without judgment. Without family, you mean, she spat. Without considering what this would do to our legacy, our name. A name isn't a legacy, Freddie cut in. Love is, and they've got plenty of that. You don't understand, Sabrina turned to her siblings. They're making a horrible mistake. There are treatments, specialists. Show them the picture, Lucille said quietly. Corbin pulled out the photo of Leah at the park. Her face split in a huge grin as she sat between us on the swings. This is your granddaughter, Mom, if you'll have her. Aunt Patricia gasped softly. Uncle Robert leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. But Sabrina stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I need time to think, she said stiffly. This is not what I wanted for you. It's not about what you want anymore, Corbin said, his voice breaking slightly. It's about what Leah needs, what we need. She gathered her purse and coat, ignoring her siblings' protests. At the door, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this decision, she said quietly. Mark my words. As the door closed behind her, I felt Corbin's hand find mine. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. For Leah. The kitchen timer chimed as I pulled another batch of cookies from the oven. Stress baking had taken over the house. Cookies, brownies, and a cake all lined the counters. Tonight's family dinner would either be a breakthrough or a breakdown, and I was preparing for both. Those smell amazing, Freddie said, snatching a warm cookie. But I think you've made enough to feed an army. I need everything to be perfect, I said, arranging cookies on a plate. Leah's coming tonight, her first dinner here with the whole family. Except Sabrina, he reminded me gently. Have you heard from her at all? Radio silence for 3 days, but she's been busy. I showed him my phone, screenshots from various family members of Sabrina's social media posts about preserving family bloodlines and the importance of biological connections. Classy, Freddie muttered, reaching for another cookie. The doorbell rang, making me jump. That's too early. Nobody's supposed to be here for 2 hours. But when I opened the door, there stood Sabrina. We need to talk, she said, brushing past me into the house. She stopped short at the sight of all the baked goods. What's all this? Family dinner tonight, I said carefully. Leah's coming. Her face tightened. That's actually why I'm here. I've been doing some research on that girl. Her name is Leah, I corrected, and she's in the system because her mother is in prison? Sabrina cut in. Did you know that? What kind of genetic predisposition might she have? What behaviors might surface? Get out. Freddie's voice was cold. I hadn't even noticed him following us into the hallway. This is family business, Sabrina snapped. Exactly, and you're trying to destroy a family before it even has a chance to begin. The front door opened again, and Corbin walked in, stopping short at the scene before him. Mom, what are you doing here? Trying to save you from a terrible mistake. She pulled papers from her purse. I have documentation about the girl's background, her family history. Stop, Corbin said, his voice firm. Just stop. We know Leah's story. She told us herself because she trusts us, because we're going to be her parents. But she's not. If you finish that sentence, I cut in, you'll never meet your granddaughter. Is that what you want? Sabrina's mouth snapped shut. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. She's coming for dinner tonight, Corbin said quietly. Stay. Meet her properly. Give her a chance. The silence stretched thin as Sabrina looked around, at the cookies cooling on racks, the fresh flowers on the table, the small welcome sign Corbin and I had made together. Fine, she said finally. I'll stay, but don't expect me to pretend this is ideal. The next 2 hours were tense. Lucille arrived early to help, shooting worried glances at Sabrina, who had positioned herself in the living room like a queen on her throne. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia came next, looking uncomfortable but determined to keep the peace. Then the doorbell rang one final time. Ms. Martinez stood there with Leah, who was wearing her favorite blue dress and clutching a drawing. She looked nervously past me at the crowd inside. It's okay, I said softly, kneeling down. Everyone's excited to meet you. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, immediately spotting Corbin. Her face lit up as she ran to show him her drawing, a picture of all of us, including a dog she hoped we might get someday. And who might this be? Sabrina's voice cut through the moment. She had risen from her chair, studying Leah intently. Leah straightened up, meeting Sabrina's gaze with surprising steadiness. I'm Leah. I like your necklace. Something shifted in Sabrina's expression. Thank you. It was my grandmother's. Did she give it to you? Like a family thing? Yes, exactly like that. Cool. Maybe someday I'll have family things too. Leah looked at me hopefully. Right? Before I could answer, Sabrina spoke again, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. You already do, dear. That drawing you're holding, that's a family thing. The tension in the room eased slightly. Leah beamed, then surprised everyone by walking over to Sabrina. Want to see it? I put you in it too. You're the one in the fancy dress, next to the dog we don't have yet. A small laugh escaped Sabrina's lips. Well, perhaps we should discuss this dog situation over dinner. I happen to know an excellent breeder. Mom, Corbin warned, but he was smiling. What? If I'm to be a grandmother, I should at least have some input on the family pet. As everyone moved toward the dining room, I caught Freddie's eye. He gave me a thumbs up, mouthing, "Told you so," before grabbing the plate of cookies to bring to the table. Maybe, just maybe, this would work after all. The dinner started peacefully enough. Leah charmed everyone with stories about her favorite books, while Sabrina maintained a polite, if reserved, demeanor, but I could feel the storm brewing beneath the surface. "So, Leah," Sabrina said during a lull in conversation, setting down her fork with precision, "tell me about your biological family." The table went silent. Leah's hand froze halfway to her mouth, her spoon trembling slightly. "Mom," Corbin warned, but Sabrina pressed on. "It's a reasonable question. We should all know what we're getting into here." "What we're getting into?" I felt my voice rising. "She's not a business investment, Sabrina." Leah put down her spoon carefully. "It's okay," she said, looking directly at Sabrina. "My first mom made some bad choices. She's in prison. My first dad left before I was born, but Danielle and Corbin chose me. That's better than being born to someone, isn't it? Being chosen?" The silence that followed was deafening. Freddie reached over and squeezed Leah's shoulder. "Being chosen," Sabrina repeated slowly, her voice taking on an edge. "Is that what you think this is? A noble rescue mission?" "That's enough." Corbin stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "No, it's not enough." Sabrina's voice rose. "This child needs professional help, not amateur parents playing house. And you two," she pointed between Corbin and me, "you're using her to spite me, to prove some point about family values." "Spite you?" I laughed incredulously. "This has nothing to do with you. We love her. She's our daughter." "She is not your daughter." Sabrina slammed her hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "She's a troubled child with a criminal for a mother, and you're making a terrible mistake." A small sob broke through the tension. Leah had tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, pushing back from the table. "I shouldn't have come." "Leah, wait." I reached for her, but she was already running toward the front door. "Now look what you've done," Sabrina huffed. "This is exactly what I meant about emotional instability." "Shut up." The words came from Corbin, shocking everyone into silence. "Just shut up, Mom. For once in your life, stop talking." I found Leah on the front porch, curled up on the swing. She looked so small, so vulnerable, and my heart broke. "I'm sorry," she said again as I sat beside her. "I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything, sweetheart. You made it better. You make everything better." Corbin appeared in the doorway, followed by Freddie and Lucille. Behind them, I could hear Sabrina's voice rising again. "If you do this, if you choose this path, then what?" Corbin turned to face his mother. "You'll disown me? Cut me off. Go ahead, because I choose them. I choose my family." Thunder rumbled overhead, perfectly punctuating his words. Sabrina's face went pale. "I've spent my whole life trying to please you," Corbin continued, "trying to live up to your expectations. But look at what your expectations have done." He gestured to Leah, still crying softly on the swing. "She's 8 years old, Mom. She's a child who needs love, not judgment. And if you can't see that, if you can't accept her, then you're the one who needs help, not her." Rain started to fall, fat drops hitting the porch roof with hollow thuds. "I think it's time for you to leave," I said, standing up. "And don't come back until you're ready to be a real grandmother." "This isn't over," Sabrina said, gathering her things. "You're making a huge mistake." "No," Leah's voice was small but clear. "They're making a family, And you're ruining it. Sabrina stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked to her car without another word. The rain was falling harder now, matching the tears on Leah's cheeks. Did I mess up? She asked, looking between Corbin and me. Will she hate me forever? Come here, Corbin said, opening his arms. She hesitated for just a moment before running into them. You didn't mess up anything, and no matter what happens with my mom, you're stuck with us now, okay? She nodded against his chest. Promise? Promise, we said together. Inside, Freddie was already ordering pizza. Because nobody finished dinner, and growing families need food. Lucille was cleaning up the dining room, humming softly. Can we eat in the living room? Leah asked hopefully. Like a picnic? Absolutely, I said, watching as her smile slowly returned. And maybe after, we can look at some paint samples for your room? And dog pictures, she added, making everyone laugh. As we settled in for our impromptu living room picnic, the storm raged outside, but in here, in this moment, with Leah tucked between us on the couch, everything felt exactly right. Sometimes the families we choose are stronger than the ones we're born into, and sometimes it takes a storm to wash away the old and make room for something new to grow. Ready? I asked, adjusting Leah's backpack straps. Her first day of school as officially Leah Palmer had finally arrived. What if the other kids ask about my last name being different now? She fidgeted with her new pencil case. Tell them you got upgraded, Freddie suggested, snapping pictures with his phone. Like a software update, but cooler. The adoption had been finalized yesterday, marked by tears, hugs, and enough cake to feed an army. Sabrina hadn't attended, but she'd sent a card. Progress of sorts. There's my favorite student, Ms. Martinez called from the school entrance. She'd helped arrange Leah's transfer to this school, ensuring a smooth transition. As Leah ran to hug her former social worker, I noticed a familiar Mercedes pulling into the parking lot. Corbin tensed beside me. Sabrina stepped out, clutching a small gift bag. She looked different, less polished, more human somehow. I found this in the attic, she said without preamble, holding out the bag to Leah. It was Corbin's first day of school gift. I thought you should have it. Inside was a worn leather bookmark, engraved with the words, "Every story matters." It's beautiful, Leah breathed, running her fingers over the letters. Your father used to read under the covers with a flashlight, Sabrina said softly, just like you do. How did you know I've been talking to Ms. Martinez. Sabrina glanced at the social worker, who nodded encouragingly. Learning about you, about adoption, about what makes a real family. The school bell rang, making us all jump. I should go, Leah said, carefully tucking the bookmark into her favorite book. She hugged Corbin and me, then hesitated before quickly hugging Sabrina too. We watched her walk into the school, her new backpack bouncing with each step. She looks just like you when she smiles, Sabrina said suddenly, looking at me. Not physically, but the way her whole face lights up. That's all you. Mom, Corbin started, but she held up a hand. Let me finish, please. She took a deep breath. I was wrong about everything. I was so focused on bloodlines and traditions that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. A little girl who needed love, and two people with more than enough love to give. It's not that simple, I said, thinking of Leah's tears that night at dinner. No, it's not. I have a lot to make up for. But she pulled out another gift bag, larger this time. Maybe we could start with this? Inside was a photo album. The first page showed Corbin at 8 years old, grinning with missing front teeth. I thought Leah might like to see what her dad looked like at her age, Sabrina explained. And maybe we could add new photos, create a real family album. Before anyone could respond, the school door burst open and Leah came running back out. "I forgot something," she called, racing toward us. "What did you forget, sweetie?" I asked, but she ran right past me to Sabrina. "Thank you for the bookmark," she said, hugging her properly this time. And I'm glad you came today. Does this mean you're really my grandmother now?" Sabrina's carefully applied makeup smudged as tears fell. "If you'll have me. Only if you promise no more yelling," Leah said seriously. "And you have to come to my room painting party this weekend. We're doing it in purple." "Purple?" Sabrina looked horrified for a moment before catching herself. "I mean, purple is lovely. And we're getting a dog," Leah added with a mischievous grin. "One step at a time," Corbin laughed, ruffling her hair. "Back to class, kiddo." As Leah disappeared back into the school, Sabrina turned to us. "A dog? Really?" "Already adopted," I admitted. "We pick him up tomorrow." "Let me guess. Leah chose him?" "Actually," Corbin smiled, "he chose her, just like she chose us, just like we chose each other." Sabrina nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand that chosen families might be the strongest kind." The second bell rang, and Ms. Martinez gestured that she needed to go inside. "I should go too," Sabrina said. "But maybe we could have dinner this weekend, after the painting party? I promised to behave." "We'd like that," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. As we walked back to our cars, I spotted Leah through her classroom window. She was showing her bookmark to her seatmate, animated and happy. When she saw us, she waved enthusiastically. "She's gonna be okay, isn't she?" Sabrina asked softly. "Better than okay," Corbin replied. "She's going to be extraordinary." We all waved back at Leah, 4 very different people united by love for one remarkable little girl. Sometimes the hardest battles end not with a bang, but with a bookmark, a purple room, and the promise of new beginnings. And sometimes, just sometimes, karma works in mysterious ways, turning even the most stubborn hearts toward love.
I never thought I'd hear my mother-in-law plotting to take my daughter away from me. But there I was, frozen in the hallway of my own home, listening to her poison my husband's mind. "Raymond, darling, you have to face facts. Andrea isn't stable enough to raise Tori. Look how she handled the birthday party today, completely overwhelmed by a few guests. What kind of mother can't even manage her child's first birthday?" My name is Andrea, and that moment changed everything. I'd spent the last hour cleaning up after Tori's party while Martina held court in our living room, criticizing every decision I'd made, from the organic cake to the modest decorations. Now I understood why she'd insisted on staying after everyone else left. "Mom, Andrea's just tired. She works full-time and—" Exactly my point. A proper mother would be home with her child. Your sister managed it beautifully with her 3. I gripped the wall, my knuckles white. The party had been lovely until Martina arrived with her entourage of society friends, turning my intimate celebration into what felt like a society event. Tori had been overwhelmed by the crowd, crying until I took her upstairs for a quiet moment. "Remember how she disappeared with Tori during the party?" Martina's voice dripped with manufactured concern. "That's not normal behavior, Raymond. A child needs stability, structure. Your father and I could provide that." My blood ran cold. I'd known from the day Raymond and I married that Martina disapproved of me, the middle-class teacher who'd stolen her precious son from the ranks of eligible society women. But this was different. This was calculated. "I don't know, Mom." Raymond's hesitation made my heart sink. Why wasn't he defending me more strongly? I stepped into the doorway, making my presence known. I think I should be part of any conversation about my daughter's welfare. Martina's perfectly made-up face showed no embarrassment at being caught. Instead, she smiled that practiced smile I'd seen her use at countless charity events. "Andrea, darling, we were just discussing Tori's future. As grandparents, we naturally want what's best for her. What's best for her is her mother. I said, moving to stand beside Raymond. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Of course, dear. No one's suggesting otherwise. Martina stood, smoothing her designer dress. I simply pointed out that with your challenging schedule, you might appreciate more support. That's all. The way she said challenging schedule made my job sound like a character flaw. I'd worked hard for my position at the elementary school, proud to be teaching 3rd grade while raising my daughter. I managed just fine, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Tori is happy, healthy, and loved. Is she? Martina raised an eyebrow. I noticed she seemed quite distressed today. And last week at my house, she was perfectly calm all afternoon. Perhaps she responds better to a more structured environment? That's when I noticed the phone in her hand, recording our conversation. My stomach lurched as I realized this wasn't just casual criticism. She was building a case. Raymond, I turned to my husband. Could you please ask your mother to leave? It's been a long day, and Tori will be up from her nap soon. He shifted uncomfortably. Mom's just trying to help, Andrea. Maybe we should consider... Consider what? I cut him off. Letting your mother take over raising our daughter? Martina gathered her designer purse, the picture of wounded dignity. I can see you're too emotional for a reasonable discussion right now. Raymond, we'll talk more later. She paused at the door. Do think about what I said. After all, we all want what's best for precious Tori. After she left, I rounded on Raymond. How could you let her talk about me like that? She means well, he said weakly. You know how she is about family. Family? I laughed bitterly. She's been trying to push me out since day one, and now she wants our daughter? Upstairs, Tori began to cry, probably roused by our voices. I started toward the stairs, but Raymond caught my arm. Maybe Mom has a point about your stress levels, he said quietly. You have been on edge lately. I jerked away from him, suddenly seeing everything clearly. This wasn't just Martina's usual interference. This was the beginning of something bigger. She'd been laying the groundwork for months. The concerned phone calls to Raymond, the subtle criticisms of my parenting, the offers to take Tori for extended visits. As I climbed the stairs to comfort my daughter, I made a silent vow. I would fight for my family with everything I had. Martina Schmidt had no idea who she was dealing with. Looking back now, I realized that was the moment everything changed. The day I stopped trying to please my mother-in-law and started planning how to save my daughter from her clutches. I just didn't know then how far Martina would go, or how far I would have to go to stop her. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I stared at the court documents inside. My fingers trembled as I read the words again. Temporary custody granted to Martina. The rest of the text blurred through my tears. 3 months had passed since Tori's birthday party, and everything had unraveled with frightening speed. Raymond had moved out 2 weeks ago, claiming he needed space to think. Now I knew exactly what kind of thinking he'd been doing. My phone buzzed. Martina's number. I declined the call, but a text followed immediately. The police will be accompanying me to collect Tori at 2 p.m. Please have her things packed. This will be easier if you cooperate. I glanced at the clock. 11:23 a.m. Less than 3 hours. You can't do this. I typed back, my fingers shaking. She's my daughter. The court order says otherwise, dear. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I called Raymond immediately. He answered on the 4th ring. How could you? I demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. Your mother? Really? Andrea, please, he sighed. It's temporary, just until you get better. Get better? There's nothing wrong with me. Mom showed me the videos, the outbursts, the emotional instability. Videos she deliberately provoked. She's been planning this for months. Listen, he said, his voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. Mom has resources. She can give Tori everything we can't right now. The best schools, activities, stability. She has stability. She has love. She has her mother. Who works full-time and can barely afford... Don't you dare. I cut him off. Don't you dare make this about money. Your mother's been manipulating you since day one, and you're too blind to see it. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the window, I saw Abigail, Martina's closest friend, standing on my porch. What fresh hell was this? I have to go, I told Raymond. But this isn't over. I opened the door, ready for battle, but Abigail's face wasn't wearing its usual society smile. Can I come in? She asked quietly. There's something you need to know. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Abigail perched on the edge of my couch, looking uncomfortable in my modest living room. Martina doesn't know I'm here, she said. But I had to warn you. She's been planning this for almost a year. What? Abigail pulled out her phone, showing me a series of text messages. She started gathering evidence last Christmas, recording your conversations, documenting every time Tori cried or you seemed stressed. She has a whole file of carefully edited videos making you look unstable. My legs gave out, and I sank into a chair. Why are you telling me this? Because she did the same thing to her sister-in-law 15 years ago. That family moved across the country to escape her. I can't watch it happen again. Upstairs, I heard Tori singing to herself as she played with her dolls. The sound nearly broke me. What am I supposed to do? I whispered. She has money, connections, everything. Fight smart, not hard, Abigail said, standing. Martina's weakness is her reputation. Everything she does is about maintaining the perfect image. She headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Andrea. She's planning a big charity gala next month. All her social circle will be there. Might be worth getting an invitation. After she left, I ran upstairs to Tori's room. She looked up from her dolls with that bright smile that made everything worthwhile. Mommy, look, Princess Sparkle is having a tea party. I sat down beside her, pulling her close. Baby, we need to pack some things. You're going to stay with Grandma for a little while. But why? Her lower lip trembled. Just for a little bit, while Mommy takes care of some things. But I promise you, I'm going to fix this. When Martina arrived with the police, I was ready. I handed over Tori's favorite stuffed rabbit, her special blanket, and my heart. I'll see you soon, sweetheart, I whispered, hugging her tight. Martina's triumphant smile as she led my daughter away told me everything I needed to know. She thought she'd won. But Abigail's visit had given me something precious. Hope and a plan. As I watched the car drive away, I pulled out my phone and Googled Martina's annual spring charity gala. Time to get myself an invitation to the social event of the season. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Just sign here to volunteer for the spring charity gala, the elderly woman said, sliding the form across the desk. We're always looking for new faces. 2 weeks of strategizing had led me to this moment. The local community center, where Martina's sister Eliana coordinated volunteer activities, was my way in. I'd changed my appearance just enough. Darker hair, glasses, and clothes that screamed eager social climber rather than grieving mother. Thank you, I smiled, signing with slightly altered handwriting. I've heard such wonderful things about the gala. Oh? Eliana looked up, studying me more carefully. My cousin attended last year. She couldn't stop talking about how elegantly Mrs. Schmidt handled everything. Eliana's expression shifted subtly. Yes, my sister does have a talent for handling things. Something in her tone made me look closer. There was a story there. I'm just excited to be involved, I continued, even if it's just arranging flowers or serving drinks. Actually, Eliana said, we need someone to help coordinate the silent auction. Previous experience? 3 years organizing fundraisers for my daughter's... I stopped, swallowing hard. For the elementary school. Eliana's eyes softened. You have a daughter? Had, I whispered, the pain in my voice entirely real. I lost her recently. It wasn't technically a lie. I had lost Tori, just not the way Eliana might assume. I'm so sorry. She touched my hand. I know something about losing family. Would you like to get coffee? The cafe next door makes excellent lattes. 20 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner booth. Eliana stirred her coffee thoughtfully. My sister, she said suddenly, has always been obsessed with perfection. The perfect family, the perfect image, the perfect control. I held my breath, waiting. Years ago, Eliana shook her head. Never mind. The past is past. But be careful working with her. Martina can be intense about her projects. Does she help with the auction? Oh yes, she oversees everything, especially since she got custody of her granddaughter. I gripped my cup tighter. Granddaughter? Yes, poor thing. Apparently the mother was unstable. Eliana trailed off, frowning. Though honestly, I've met that little girl. She asks for her mother constantly. My heart clenched. What does Mrs. Schmidt say about that? She changes the subject, just like she did when... Eliana stopped again, looking troubled. When what? She leaned forward. Can you keep a secret? Years ago, Martina did something similar with our brother's wife, convinced everyone she was unfit. That family fled to Canada to escape her influence. I haven't seen my nieces in 15 years. My hands shook so badly I had to set down my cup. Why didn't you stop her? I tried. But Martina, she's very good at twisting things, making you doubt what you see. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. She touched my arm. Are you all right? You've gone pale. Fine, I managed. Just reminded me of something. Eliana studied me for a long moment. Then her eyes widened slightly. Oh my God, she whispered. You're her, the mother. I froze, ready to bolt, but her hand gripped mine tighter. Don't worry, she said quietly. I should have seen it sooner. The timing, the story about your daughter. She pulled out her phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. It was a photo of Tori from yesterday, looking sad while Martina posed her in front of a piano. She's not happy, Eliana said, and neither was I, watching history repeat itself. Please, I whispered. Don't tell Martina you know. Tell her? Eliana laughed bitterly. I've been waiting years for someone to stand up to her. The silent auction position is yours. It'll put you in direct contact with her social circle. Just be careful. Martina's not above destroying anyone who threatens her perfect world. As I left the community center, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Eliana. Dinner at my house tomorrow? I have photos from other events you might find interesting, including some of Martina's more unguarded moments. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Finally, I had an ally. And more importantly, I had access to Martina's world. That night, I added Eliana's name to my growing map of connections and evidence. Below Abigail's warning about the gala, beside the note about Martina's pattern with other families, soon I'd have enough to expose the truth. Soon, I'd have my daughter back. But first, I had a silent auction to coordinate. She's filing adoption papers next week, Abigail whispered, glancing nervously around the empty coffee shop. Once those go through, you'll never see Tori again. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. She can't do that. Raymond would never. Raymond signed the preliminary paperwork yesterday. Martina convinced him it's the only way to ensure Tori has a stable future. 1 month of infiltrating Martina's social circle had yielded countless stories of manipulation, but this was different. This was endgame. I need proof, I said. Something concrete. Check your email. I recorded Martina discussing it at yesterday's committee meeting. She doesn't know I keep my phone running during these sessions. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. The audio file was there. Martina's voice crystal clear as she bragged about her plans to finally make things official with her granddaughter. Why are you helping me? I asked Abigail. She twisted her wedding ring. Because 20 years ago, I was you. Different situation, different child, same Martina. I was too scared to fight back then. I've regretted it ever since. The cafe door chimed. A woman with a press badge walked in, catching my eye with deliberate intent. Zara, the local journalist Eliana had connected me with. Ladies, she said, sliding into our booth. I hear we have something interesting to discuss. I played the audio file. Zara's eyebrows rose higher with each passing second. This is gold, she said, but we need more. Photos, witnesses, a pattern of behavior. I have photos, Abigail said. Lots of them. Martina when she thinks no one's watching. The way she treats Tori when the cameras aren't rolling. And I have witnesses, I added. 3 families she's done this to before. Eliana helped me track them down. Zara pulled out her notebook. Tell me everything. For the next hour, we built the case. Abigail's photos showed Martina's mask slipping. Harsh words, grabbed arms, tearful children. My witnesses painted a pattern of manipulation spanning decades. Zara scribbled furiously. This is bigger than a custody battle, she said finally. This is about power, control, and systematic emotional abuse hidden behind society's perfect veneer. My phone buzzed. A text from Eliana. Emergency. Come to my house now. I have to go, I said, standing. But Zara, how soon can you run this story? Give me a week to fact-check everything. But when it hits? She smiled grimly. Martina won't know what hit her. 15 minutes later, I rushed into Eliana's living room to find her pacing. Look at this. She thrust her tablet at me. It was an email from Martina to her lawyer, accidentally copied to Eliana. Once the adoption is final, we'll move to Europe. I've already enrolled Tori in a Swiss boarding school. The distance will help her forget all about. She's planning to leave the country, I whispered. Next month, Eliana confirmed, right after the gala. The gala. An idea formed. That's where we'll stop her. Everyone who matters will be there. Her whole carefully constructed world in one room. She'll never let you in. She won't know it's me. I'm on the planning committee, remember? And I have these. I pulled out the donor list I'd been working on. Every major player in her social circle, all in one place. Eliana's eyes lit up. The silent auction. We could set up a presentation, something that seems like it's celebrating her. Until it doesn't. I finished. But we'll need help. You have it, said a voice from the doorway. Abigail stood there with Zara. We followed you. Hope you don't mind. Mind? I laughed. I need you both. Zara's story, Abigail's photos, Eliana's insider knowledge. And your courage, Eliana added. We can do this. We spent the next hour planning. Each person had a role, each piece of evidence its place in the revelation to come. As we finished, my phone chimed with a video message from Raymond. Tori sat at Martina's grand piano, looking lost as Martina forced her small hands through complex scales. Mommy does it better. Tori's voice wavered. I want Mommy. Mommy's not here. Martina's sharp voice replied. I'm your family now. I looked up at my unlikely allies, the society friend, the whistleblower sister, the crusading journalist. 2 weeks until the gala. Let's make them count. Zara raised her coffee cup in a toast. To bringing down the queen of manipulation. To saving Tori, I corrected. To justice, Eliana and Abigail said together. The pieces were in place. Now we just had to survive until the gala. Andrea, we need to talk. Raymond's voice behind me nearly made me drop the auction catalog I was organizing at the community center. I turned slowly, grateful for my disguise. I don't know who. Drop the act, he said quietly. Eliana told me everything. My heart stopped. She would when she saw what I found in Mom's study. He pulled out a thick folder. Bank statements, court documents, letters to her lawyer dating back to before Tori was even born. She's been planning this for years. I glanced around the empty room. Why are you here? Because I was an idiot, he said, running a hand through his hair. Because I let her manipulate me just like she's done to everyone else. Because our daughter cries herself to sleep every night asking for you. My hands clenched. And you're just now noticing? I'm trying to make it right. He opened the folder. These prove she's been transferring large sums to the judge who granted her custody. There's more. Documentation of her threatening other families, proof she bribed witnesses. Why should I trust you now? Because I found this. He pulled out a document with tomorrow's date. She's filing for full adoption and immediate permission to leave the country. Once that goes through, we'll never see Tori again. I sank into a chair. We're planning something at the gala. I know. Eliana told me. But you need these documents to make it stick legally. He placed the folder in front of me. I've made copies. Use them. Raymond. I studied his face. She's your mother. Are you sure? She stopped being my mother the moment she tried to steal my daughter. He headed for the door, then turned back. Andrea? I'm sorry. For everything. After he left, I called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, everyone gathered at Eliana's house. These are perfect, Zara said, flipping through the documents. Combined with our other evidence, this is nuclear. But we have to move fast. Abigail added, if Martina suspects anything... She doesn't, Eliana interrupted. She's too focused on the gala. It's her moment to show off her perfect family before whisking Tori away to Switzerland. I spread the evidence across the table. Raymond's documents, Abigail's photos, witness statements, bank records, Zara's draft article. Walk me through the plan again, I said. Zara pointed to her laptop. I've prepared a video presentation, supposedly highlighting Martina's charitable work, but halfway through it transitions to show her true nature. Witness testimonies, surveillance footage, everything. I've arranged the seating chart, Abigail added. All her victims' families will be in the front row. They're flying in specially. The tech team's on board, Eliana said. They'll lock down the exits when the presentation starts. No one leaves until it's done. And I've alerted certain law enforcement contacts. Zara smiled. They'll be there to handle any legal implications. My phone buzzed, a text from Raymond. Mom's showing off Tori to her friends again. She's exhausted, but Mom won't let her rest. I showed them the message. We have to end this. 2 days until the gala, Eliana said. Everything's ready. Almost everything, I corrected, pulling out a small box. I need one more favor. Inside was a silver locket, Tori's favorite, with our picture inside. I'd managed to slip it to her once during a supervised visit, but Martina had confiscated it. Can someone make sure she gets this before the gala? She needs to know Mommy's coming for her. Abigail took the locket. I'm having tea with them tomorrow. I'll find a way. As we finalized details, another text came through, this time from an unknown number. It was a photo of Tori sleeping, clutching her old stuffed rabbit, tears still wet on her cheeks. The caption read, She needs her mom. Don't fail tomorrow. I looked up at my allies. My friends now, really. We won't fail. No, Eliana agreed. We won't. For Tori, Abigail said. For every child Martina's tried to steal, Zara added. For justice, I finished. We worked late into the night, checking and double-checking every detail. When I finally left, Eliana hugged me tight. Get some rest, she said. Tomorrow we prepare. The next day we take my sister down. Driving home, I passed Martina's mansion. A light was on in Tori's window. I could almost imagine her there, waiting, hoping. Hold on, baby, I whispered. Mommy's coming, and this time, no one's going to stop me. The gala was coming. Our trap was set. And Martina had no idea she was about to lose everything she'd worked so hard to steal. The grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and society's elite. I adjusted my wig and glasses, clipboard clutched to my chest as I directed caterers and checked sound equipment. No one looked twice at the efficient event coordinator in sensible heels. Everything's ready, Zara murmured as she passed, pretending to check her press credentials. The video's queued up. I nodded slightly, then froze as Martina swept in with Tori. My daughter wore a frilly pink dress that she would have hated under normal circumstances. Her small hand clutched the silver locket we'd managed to get to her. Smile, darling, Martina commanded, steering Tori toward a group of photographers. Show everyone how happy you are with grandmother. Tori's eyes scanned the room, and for a heart-stopping moment, they met mine. I pressed a finger to my lips. She gave the tiniest nod, then turned back to the cameras. Places, everyone, I called out, my voice disguised with a slight accent. The presentation begins in 20 minutes. Abigail appeared at my elbow. The families are all here. Front row, just as planned. And the police? Plain clothes scattered throughout. They're ready. I watched Martina work the room, showing off Tori like a prize poodle. Raymond stood near the bar, looking increasingly uncomfortable as his mother bragged about their fresh start in Switzerland. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced at exactly 8 o'clock. Please take your seats. Mrs. Schmidt's special tribute presentation is about to begin. Martina preened as she led Tori to their seats of honor. The lights dimmed and the screen lit up with carefully curated photos of Martina's charitable works. For 20 years, the narrator intoned, Martina Schmidt has been a pillar of our community. I slipped through the crowd to the tech booth. Now, I whispered to the operator. The screen flickered. Suddenly, instead of charity galas, there was Martina screaming at a terrified Tori for spilling juice on her designer rug. Then Martina threatening one of her previous victims. Photo after photo, video after video, each more damning than the last. Gasps filled the room. Martina leaped to her feet. Stop this immediately. Security, I called out. But our planted security team just stood watching. The evidence kept coming. Bank statements showing bribes, court documents revealing her pattern of manipulation, testimonies from families she'd destroyed. Who's responsible for this? Martina shrieked, spinning around wildly. I stepped into the light, removing my wig and glasses. I am. Andrea, she hissed. How dare you? No. I cut her off, my voice carrying through the microphone I'd concealed. How dare you? How dare you steal children from loving parents? How dare you traumatize innocent families? How dare you try to take my daughter? Security, remove this woman. They won't help you. Zara stood up, press badge gleaming. They're with us, just like the police officers scattered throughout this room. Tori broke free from Martina's grip and ran to me. I scooped her up, holding her close as she sobbed, "Mommy, Mommy," into my shoulder. This is absurd. Martina tried to laugh, but her society friends were already backing away. These are obviously fabrications. Are they? One of the front row guests stood up. Like you fabricated evidence against me 15 years ago? Another rose. Like you threatened my family? Like you tried to steal my grandson? A third voice called out. Martina's perfect mask cracked. Raymond, tell them I only wanted what was best. What was best? Raymond stepped forward. Was it best when you bribed Judge Harrison? When you planned to smuggle my daughter out of the country? When you destroyed evidence of Andrea's fitness as a mother? I have proof of everything, Zara announced. My exposé runs tomorrow. Every detail, every victim, every manipulation. Martina lunged for Tori, but two plainclothes officers intercepted her. Martina Schmidt, one said, producing handcuffs. You're under arrest for conspiracy, evidence tampering, judicial bribery. As they led her away, still screaming about ungrateful children and her ruined reputation, I held Tori closer. Is it over, Mommy? She whispered. Yes, baby. You're coming home. Raymond approached cautiously. Andrea, Not now, I said quietly. We'll talk later. Right now, our daughter needs us both. The ballroom had erupted into chaos. Reporters pushing forward, society friends fleeing the scandal, Martina's victims sharing their stories with police. Eliana and Abigail appeared beside us. Let's get you out the back, Eliana said. The media can wait. As we slipped away, I heard Martina's final shriek. I gave you everything. I am everything. But she was wrong. She was nothing now. And we were finally free. The morning after the gala, my living room filled with police officers, lawyers, and child services representatives. Tori sat in my lap, refusing to let go even for a moment. Mrs. Schmidt's being held without bail, Detective Morris explained. The evidence of judicial tampering alone. Will I have to testify? I asked, stroking Tori's hair. Not likely. We've got dozens of witnesses, documented evidence, and 3 judges admitting to accepting bribes. She's looking at serious time. Raymond paced by the window, phone buzzing constantly. Her lawyers quit. The society boards voted to remove her from every committee. It's like watching a house of cards collapse. Mommy, Tori tugged at my sleeve. Can I show you what Grandma made me do? My heart clenched. Of course, baby. She led me to the piano we'd kept in the corner. Sitting down, her small fingers began moving mechanically through scales. 6 hours a day, she said quietly. If I made a mistake, she'd make me start over. She said it would make me perfect like her. Raymond stopped pacing. 6 hours? She told me it was just casual lessons. There's nothing casual about your mother, I said. Tori, honey, you never have to play again if you don't want to. Can I just play Twinkle Twinkle like you taught me? Of course. As Tori picked out the simple melody, smiling for the first time in weeks, the doorbell rang. Eliana and Abigail stood there with Zara. You need to see this, Zara said, holding up the morning paper. The headline screamed, Society Matriarch's Reign of Terror Exposed. It's going viral, Abigail added. 3 more families have come forward already. And that's not all. Eliana pulled out her phone. Listen to this voicemail Martina left me from jail. Martina's voice filled the room, raw with rage. You treacherous snake! My own sister! I made you what you are. I'll destroy you all. Eliana stopped the playback. There's more, but it gets worse. The police are adding witness intimidation charges. How's she handling jail? I couldn't help asking. Not well. Detective Morris smirked. Apparently orange isn't her color. Tori's piano playing stopped. Is Grandma going to jail forever? Raymond knelt beside her. She did some very bad things, sweetheart. She has to face the consequences. Like when I have to sit in timeout? Something like that. I managed, fighting back tears at her innocence. The child services representative approached. We've reviewed everything. Given the circumstances, we're recommending immediate restoration of full custody to Andrea, with supervised visitation for Raymond until the divorce proceedings. No, I interrupted. No supervision needed. Raymond was a victim too. He's still Tori's father. Raymond looked at me gratefully. I don't deserve your forgiveness. This isn't about deserving. It's about healing. All of us. Zara cleared her throat. Speaking of healing, the families Martina targeted want to meet. They're talking about starting a support group. Count us in, Raymond said firmly. It's time to break the cycle. Suddenly, Tori started playing again. Not scales or classical pieces, but a simple, happy tune she was making up on the spot. That's beautiful, I said. It's for you, Mommy, and Daddy, and Aunt Eliana and Miss Abigail and everyone who helped bring me home. The room fell silent except for her improvised melody. Even the police officers stopped their note-taking to listen. Out of the mouths of babes, Eliana whispered. Detective Morris stood. We'll need more statements later, but for now, spend time with your daughter. The DA's office will be in touch about the case. As people filed out, Abigail lingered. Andrea, thank you for doing what I couldn't all those years ago. Thank you for helping me do it. After everyone left, it was just the 3 of us, me, Raymond, and Tori, our broken little family starting to heal. Can we have pancakes? Tori asked. Grandma never let me have pancakes. We can have anything you want, Raymond said. Then I want pancakes with Mommy and Daddy. We moved to the kitchen, Tori directing us like a tiny conductor as we gathered ingredients. When she wasn't looking, Raymond touched my arm. I know I messed up. We'll talk later, I said. Right now, our daughter wants pancakes. As flour dusted the counter and giggles filled the air, I realized something. Martina had tried to create her version of a perfect family through control and manipulation. But here, in this messy kitchen with imperfect pancakes and genuine laughter, we'd found something better. We'd found truth. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as Martina emerged in handcuffs. Her designer outfit had been replaced by standard prison garb, her perfectly coiffed hair now stringy and gray at the roots. 20 years, Raymond whispered, squeezing my hand. No possibility of parole for 15. I watched my former mother-in-law being led to the prison transport. She caught my eye and mouthed something that looked like, "I'll destroy you." But the threat felt empty now. "Ready to go home?" I asked. "Actually," he hesitated. "I was hoping we could talk about that." We found a quiet cafe near the courthouse. Tori was at school, her real school, not the elite private academy Martina had forced her into. "I've been offered a job," Raymond said. "Here in town, heading up a nonprofit that helps families affected by parental alienation." "That's wonderful. The thing is," he stirred his coffee endlessly. "I've been staying at Eliana's, but that was temporary. And I know we're technically separated, but seeing you with Tori these past few weeks, watching you fight for her, I realized what I almost lost. What I want to fight for. Raymond, I'm not asking to move back in. I know I need to earn back your trust. But maybe we could try counseling? Start with family dinner once a week?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Zara. "Turn on the news now." I pulled up the local station on my phone. Footage showed police raiding Martina's mansion. "Evidence of decades of financial fraud," the reporter announced. "Sources say Mrs. Schmidt had been embezzling from her own charities for years. In related news, 3 more judges have stepped down amid the growing corruption scandal." "She fooled everyone," Raymond said quietly. "Even me. Especially me." "Not everyone," I corrected. "Eliana knew. Abigail suspected. They just needed someone willing to stand up to her. Like you did." My phone buzzed again, a text from Tori's teacher. "Thought you'd want to see this." The attached photo showed Tori at show and tell, proudly holding up the newspaper article about Martina's conviction. "My mommy," the caption quoted, "says sometimes the bravest thing is telling the truth, even when people don't want to hear it." Raymond's eyes welled up. "She's right, and I need to tell you my truth. I love you, Andrea. I never stopped. I just lost my way for a while." "I know," I said softly. "But finding your way back isn't just about love. It's about trust, respect, standing together." "Then let me stand with you now. The nonprofit needs a co-director, someone who understands what families go through, who can help them fight back." "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a partnership. In every sense." The cafe door chimed as Eliana and Abigail walked in. "Sorry to interrupt," Eliana said, "but you need to see this." She handed me a letter. It was from Martina's first victim, the sister-in-law who'd fled to Canada. "We're starting a support network," Abigail explained, "for all the families affected by Martina. They want you to lead it." "Me?" "You're the one who brought her down," Eliana said. "You gave everyone hope." I looked at Raymond, saw the same hope in his eyes. "We could do it together," he said. "Help other families heal while we heal our own." My phone lit up with another photo from Tori's teacher. This time, my daughter sat at a classroom piano, teaching another student the simple version of Twinkle Twinkle she loved. The caption read, "She said everyone deserves a chance to make their own kind of music." "Yes," I said finally. "To all of it. The nonprofit, the support network, the counseling, the family dinners. But we take it slow." "As slow as you need," Raymond promised. Eliana raised her coffee cup. "To new beginnings?" "To truth," Abigail added. "To family," Raymond said. "To justice," I finished. "The real kind." Outside, the media was still buzzing about Martina's downfall, but it felt distant now. We had more important things to focus on: healing families, rebuilding trust, and creating something genuine from the ashes of false perfection. Shall we go pick up our daughter? Raymond asked. I took his hand, feeling the weight of my journey in that simple gesture. Yes, let's go make some real music. As we left the cafe, I caught my reflection in the window. I saw someone stronger than the woman who'd lost her daughter, braver than the mother who'd fought back, wiser than the wife who'd trusted too easily. I saw someone ready to build something true. And this time, no one could take it away.
1 million followers, I whispered to Freddie across the coffee shop table, watching his eyes widen as he nearly choked on his latte. And they still think I'm wasting my time. My name is Zoe, and I'm what you'd call the family disappointment. At least that's how my siblings make me feel every chance they get. While they climb their fancy corporate ladders, I've been building something of my own, something they'd never understand. Are you serious? Freddie leaned forward, lowering his voice. 1 million? That's insane, Zoe. Yeah, and the best part? Marley and Nash still think I'm just posting pretty pictures of street food and sunsets. I couldn't help but smile, even though it hurt. You should have heard them at dinner last night. The memory was still fresh. Another painful family dinner where I was served a hefty portion of criticism alongside Mom's lasagna. So Zoe, Marley had started, using that condescending lawyer tone she'd perfected. Still playing around with that little travel blog of yours? I pushed my food around my plate. It's going well, actually. I just got back from Thailand and— Thailand? Nash interrupted, adjusting his expensive tie. Please tell me you're not burning through your savings for these little adventures. I'm not burning through anything, I said quietly, knowing they wouldn't believe the truth anyway. The blog pays for itself. Honey, Marley reached across the table, patting my hand like I was a child. I know you want to follow your dreams, but maybe it's time to think about a real career. I could get you an interview at my firm. Filing clerk positions are perfect for someone with your experience. Back in the coffee shop, Freddie's voice pulled me from the memory. Why don't you just tell them? Show them your analytics, your sponsorship deals. I took a sip of my Americano. Would you believe me if I told you I've tried? Last month, I mentioned a hotel partnership in Barcelona. Nash laughed and asked if they were paying me in continental breakfast vouchers. Your siblings are jerks, Freddie declared, not for the first time. The worst part is, they think they're helping, protecting me from ending up like Aunt Lexi. The artist aunt they never talk about? Yeah, she chased her dreams of becoming a painter. Now she lives in a tiny apartment in Portland, selling watercolors on Etsy. They use her as a cautionary tale. My phone buzzed. Another notification from my blog. A luxury resort in the Maldives wanted to collaborate. The irony wasn't lost on me. I made more in a month than Nash did in his quarterly bonuses. I hesitated playing with my coffee cup. I wish they could see me, really see me. Freddie's eyes lit up with that dangerous spark that usually preceded his best or worst ideas. So, make them see you. What do you mean? You've got the means, right? Do something big, something they can't ignore. I pulled out my laptop, opening my travel planning folder. Actually, I've been thinking about something. They've always talked about wanting to do this fancy European vacation together, the kind with private tours and 5-star hotels. Okay, Freddie leaned in. What if I funded it, the whole thing? First-class flights, luxury suites, the works. They'd never know it came from my little blog. The plan had been forming in my mind for weeks, but saying it out loud made it feel real. That's either brilliant or terrible, Freddie said. Maybe both. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Marley. Family dinner tonight. Mom's making pot roast. Please wear something professional for once. I showed Freddie the text. See what I mean? They treat me like I'm 16. So what are you gonna do? I closed my laptop with a decisive click. I'm going to plan the most amazing family vacation they've ever dreamed of. And then, I smiled, feeling a mix of excitement and guilt. I'm going to turn it into the most viral blog series they'll never see coming. You're going to document the whole thing? Every perfect, curated moment. They want to treat me like a joke? Fine. But they're about to become part of a story they didn't know they were starring in. Freddie whistled low. This could backfire spectacularly. You know that, right? Probably, I admitted, standing up and gathering my things. But I'm tired of being the family cautionary tale. Sometimes you have to risk everything to gain anything. As I headed to my car to prepare for another family dinner, my phone lit up with more notifications. Another sponsored post hit 100,000 likes. A travel magazine wanted an interview. A tourism board offered an all-expenses-paid trip to New Zealand. And my siblings thought I was just playing around with a little blog. Tonight, I'd sit through their well-meaning criticism one more time. But soon, very soon, they'd learn what their little sister was really capable of. The question was, would it bring us closer together or tear us apart completely? You want to do what? Freddie's voice crackled through my phone speaker as I paced my apartment, surrounded by travel brochures and sticky notes. Book the whole thing, tonight. I clicked through luxury hotel websites, my cursor hovering over the Reserve Now button. Before I lose my nerve. And you're sure about this? The memory of last night's family dinner was still fresh. Another master class in subtle undermining from my siblings. Pass the salt, Zoe, Nash had said, then added with a smirk, unless you're too busy photographing your mashed potatoes for your followers. Actually, I'd replied, forcing a smile, I was thinking about planning a family trip. That got their attention. Marley had lowered her wine glass, exchanging a look with Nash. A trip? She'd asked carefully, like she was talking to a child suggesting we all fly to the moon. Honey, those kinds of vacations are expensive. Maybe start smaller, like a weekend at the lake? I'm thinking bigger, I'd said, heart pounding. 2 weeks in Europe, first class everything. Nash had nearly choked on his pot roast. And how exactly are you planning to fund this little adventure? Blog exposure? I'll handle everything, I'd said firmly. All expenses. Consider it my treat. The silence that followed was deafening until Marley broke it with a patronizing laugh. Oh, sweetie, that's ambitious. But maybe we should wait until you have a more stable income stream. Now, staring at my laptop screen, I pulled up my bank account. The numbers made me smile. 6 figures from sponsored content alone, not counting my passive income streams. Freddie, I've never been more sure of anything. Okay, talk me through the plan again. I clicked through my meticulously organized spreadsheet. 2 weeks, hitting all their dream destinations. Paris, Rome, Barcelona, 5-star hotels, private tours, Michelin-star restaurants, the works. And they have no idea you can afford this? Remember last month when Nash was bragging about his bonus? It wouldn't cover 2 nights at the hotels I'm booking. My phone pinged with a new email, another brand wanting to collaborate. I ignored it, focusing on the bookings. There, I said, hitting the final confirmation button. First-class flights booked. No turning back now. When are you going to tell them? Family brunch tomorrow. I closed my laptop, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. I already texted Mom to make sure everyone's coming. The next morning, I walked into our favorite brunch spot, clutching an envelope filled with printed itineraries. Marley and Nash were already there, both in their Sunday best, while I wore my usual jeans and a comfortable sweater. Well, look who finally made it, Marley said, checking her watch. We were starting to worry you'd gotten lost documenting the local coffee scene. I slid into my seat, waiting until after we'd ordered to pull out the envelope. Remember what I mentioned at dinner? Your imaginary European vacation? Nash chuckled. How could we forget? I spread the documents across the table. Not imaginary anymore. Everything's booked. We leave in 3 weeks. The silence was delicious. Marley picked up a flight confirmation, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling slightly. These are first-class tickets. 4 Seasons Paris, Nash muttered, flipping through the hotel reservations. Private tour of the Vatican, yacht day in Barcelona. His face went pale. Zoe, this is easily a 6-figure trip. I know, I said calmly, sipping my mimosa. Like I said, my treat. But how? Marley started. Does it matter? I interrupted, surprising myself with my confidence. You both work so hard. You deserve something special. Let someone else take care of things for once. They exchanged worried looks. I could see the wheels turning, wondering if I'd gotten into debt, or worse. Look, Nash leaned forward. If you've done something reckless, the only thing you need to worry about is getting time off work, I said firmly. Everything else is handled. But, do you want to go or not? Another silence. Finally, Marley smiled. A genuine smile this time. Of course we want to go. It's just unexpected. Sometimes the best things are, I replied, thinking about my blog's first viral post, the one that changed everything. As we finished brunch, discussing passport renewals and packing lists, I felt a twinge of guilt about my hidden agenda. But then Nash made another crack about my cute little Instagram hobby, and the guilt evaporated. Later that night, I opened my blog's admin panel and started drafting the first post of what would become my most ambitious series yet, Family Dreams, an influencer's secret gift. You've started the countdown now, Freddie texted. No going back. I looked at the family photo from brunch, already edited and ready to post. My siblings' smiling faces, completely unaware they were about to become the stars of a story that would change everything. Good, I typed back. It's about time they saw what their little sister can do. Oh my God, this is first class? Marley squealed, settling into her pod seat. I've never seen legroom like this. I hid my smile behind my camera, pretending to adjust settings while capturing her childlike excitement. If only she knew how many times I'd flown this way for blog work. Nash was already reclining his seat, accepting a glass of champagne from the flight attendant. This is insane, Zoe. I still can't believe you pulled this off. Just wait until you see the hotels, I replied, snapping another candid shot of him sipping champagne. Perfect for the blog post I'd already titled, From Skeptics to Believers, A Family's First Taste of Luxury Travel. As we took off, I couldn't help but notice how different they both were away from their usual environments. No power suits, no briefcases, no condescending comments about my career choices. Just pure, unfiltered joy. Look at these amenities. Marley was going through her travel kit like a kid at Christmas. Is this real La Mer cream? Only the best for my favorite siblings, I said, the words tasting bittersweet. Halfway through the flight, Nash leaned across the aisle. Seriously, Zoe, how did you afford all this? Magic, I winked, pulling out my laptop. Now smile for the camera. The lighting's perfect. Always with the photos. He rolled his eyes, but posed anyway. At least let me see them before you post them on your little blog. I nodded, knowing these shots would stay private until the perfect moment. My real followers would have to wait for the big reveal. 8 hours later, we landed in Paris. The look on their faces when our private driver held up a sign with our names was priceless. A Mercedes? Marley whispered as we approached the sleek black vehicle. Zoe, this is too much. Nothing's too much for family, I replied, discreetly filming their reactions for my Instagram stories. The Four Seasons George V left them speechless. Marley actually gasped when we entered our suite, running from room to room like a teenager. There must be some mistake, Nash said, staring at the Eiffel Tower view. This suite is bigger than my apartment. No mistake. I set up my tripod by the window. Come on, family photo time before we unpack. You and that camera, Marley laughed, but she was already fixing her hair. At least you're documenting everything properly. If only she knew. That evening, over dinner at a rooftop restaurant, Marley scrolled through her phone. Oh my God, look at this travel blog I found. They stayed in this exact suite last month. The photos are amazing. My heart skipped a beat. Oh? Yeah, some influencer with a huge following. Their European guides are incredible. She showed me the screen, my own blog post staring back at me. We should follow their recommendations while we're here. Nash peered over her shoulder. Wow, they really know their stuff. Professional photos, insider tips. This is what travel blogging should look like, Zoe. Maybe you could learn something. I took a long sip of wine, suppressing both a laugh and a scream. Maybe I could. Later that night, after they'd gone to their rooms, I sat on my balcony updating my private Instagram story. Day 1, they're literally reading my blog for travel tips without realizing it's mine. Stay tuned, followers. This is just getting started. Freddie replied instantly. The irony is killing me. How are you keeping a straight face? Practice, I typed back. Years of practice. The next morning, we had a private tour of the Louvre before opening hours. Our guide, Sophie, was one of my regular collaborators. Zoe? She exclaimed when she saw me, then caught my subtle head shake. Oh, welcome to the Louvre. Shall we begin? As we walked through the empty halls, Sophie sharing her expertise, I noticed Marley and Nash actually listening to me for once when I added historical facts I'd learned from my previous visits. How do you know all this? Nash asked, genuinely impressed. Oh, just picked it up from my little blog research, I said casually, watching his face fall slightly as he remembered to be dismissive. By dinner, my siblings were transformed. Gone were the power-playing professionals, replaced by wide-eyed travelers soaking in every moment. This is incredible, Marley said over our third course. I've never felt so free. It's like being in a dream, Nash agreed, then looked at me curiously. You seem so comfortable with all this luxury, Zoe, like you've done it before. I shrugged, adjusting my camera settings. I guess I'm just good at adapting. As they chatted about tomorrow's plans, I uploaded the day's photos to my private folder, already writing captions in my head. Soon, very soon, they'd see themselves through my lens and finally understand exactly what their little sister was capable of. More wine? I offered, raising my glass. Here's to family surprises. They clinked glasses enthusiastically, completely unaware they were toasting to their own imminent revelation. Just a little to the left, Marley. Perfect. I adjusted my camera settings as my sister posed against the Roman Colosseum's ancient walls. Now look slightly up, like you're lost in thought. You're getting really good at this, she admitted, following my directions. These photos are actually starting to look professional. I bit back a response about my $500,000 camera being pretty professional already. Thanks, I've had some practice. My phone buzzed. Another email from Travel and Leisure magazine about my viral Rome series from last year. I quickly dismissed it. Nash, you're up, I called to my brother, who was busy texting his office. The lighting's perfect right now. He groaned but complied, walking over. More photos? Don't you have enough for your blog already? Trust me, I smiled, positioning him just right. These will be worth it. As I snapped away, a group of tourists nearby started whispering and pointing. I knew that look. They'd recognized me from my blog. Thankfully, Marley and Nash were too absorbed in checking their own photos to notice. Miss, one of the tourists approached hesitantly. Are you the one who wrote the Hidden Gems of Rome series? I quickly shook my head, making a subtle, please don't gesture. Oh no, sorry, just another tourist. The fan looked confused but caught my drift and walked away. Nash looked up from his phone. What was that about? Nothing. Probably thought I was someone else. I quickly changed the subject. Who's hungry? I know this amazing little place down a hidden alley. The restaurant, like everything else on our trip, was carefully chosen from my previous visits. As we settled into our corner table, the owner rushed over. "Signorina Zoe, welcome back." He caught himself too late. "Back?" Marley raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I meant welcome," he stammered, looking at me apologetically. "Special table for you and family, yes?" I nodded gratefully as he hurried away, but the damage was done. "That was weird," Nash mused. "Have you been here before?" "Must be thinking of someone else," I said quickly, opening the menu. "Try the truffle pasta. It's supposedly amazing." Later that afternoon, as we lounged by our hotel's rooftop pool, my phone lit up with a message from the editor of Wanderlust magazine. "Love the mysterious family vacation posts you're teasing. When can we expect the full story?" "Still working on it," I typed back, glancing at my siblings enjoying their cocktails. "Zoe, come look at this," Marley called out, holding up her phone. "Remember that travel blog I found in Paris? They have a whole guide about this exact hotel. The photos are incredible." I walked over, trying to keep my expression neutral as I looked at my own images on her screen. "See how they captured the sunset over the Vatican?" She pointed excitedly. "That's real talent. Maybe you could reach out to them for tips." "Maybe," I said, watching the actual Vatican sunset paint the sky in front of us. "Speaking of photos, let's get some shots before we lose this light." I positioned them perfectly, knowing exactly how to capture the golden hour glow I'd mastered months ago in this very spot. As I clicked away, Nash whistled. "Wow, these actually look like those professional blog photos," he said, peering at my camera screen. "Almost as good as that account Marley found." "Funny coincidence," I muttered, adjusting my settings for another shot. That evening, after they'd gone to bed, I sat in my suite updating my private Instagram story. Day 5. They're literally comparing my photos to my photos. The irony is reaching new levels. Freddie replied immediately. "This is getting good. When are you dropping the bomb?" "Soon," I wrote back. "The magazine wants an exclusive." A notification popped up. Marley had just posted one of my photos on her Instagram. Her caption read, "Living the dream thanks to my amazing sister. Still don't know how she afforded this, but I'm not questioning it anymore." The post already had dozens of comments, including one that made my heart stop. "OMG, isn't this the same hotel from that famous travel blogger's Rome series?" I quickly logged into my main account and deleted the comment before Marley could see it. But more were coming. My followers were starting to connect the dots. Another message from Freddie. "You can't keep this up forever." "I know," I replied, looking at the growing stack of memory cards filled with perfectly curated moments. "But I need a few more days. The story's not complete yet." I opened my laptop and began sorting through the day's photos, each one better than the last. My siblings looking carefree, happy, completely unaware they were starring in what would become my most viral series yet. A final text from Freddie. "Just remember, you can't control how they'll react when they find out." I looked at my camera, then at the Vatican glowing in the distance. "Maybe not," I whispered to myself, "but I can control how the world sees it." "Last breakfast in Europe," Marley sighed, stirring her cappuccino at our Barcelona hotel's rooftop restaurant. "I can't believe it's almost over." I adjusted my camera one final time, capturing her wistful expression against the Mediterranean backdrop. The last shot for my series. Perfect. "We should plan something special for Zoe when we get back," Nash said, surprising me. "To thank her for all this." "Absolutely," Marley agreed. "Maybe dinner at that new place downtown? The waiting list is months long, but I can pull some strings." I almost laughed. I had a standing VIP reservation there from my restaurant review series last summer. That's sweet but unnecessary, I said, checking my phone. Wanderlust magazine had just sent the final contract for my exclusive reveal. All I needed was to sign. No, really, Nash insisted. This trip has been eye-opening. We haven't always been supportive of your choices, but clearly you're doing better than we thought. Speaking of which, Marley leaned forward, isn't it time you told us how you really managed all this? My phone buzzed again, a message from Freddie. They're starting to figure it out. Your latest Instagram story is blowing up. Let's just enjoy our last day, I deflected, standing up. We have that private yacht tour in an hour. On the boat, as we cruised along the coast, I felt the weight of my laptop in my bag. The blog post was ready. One click would change everything. Hey, Nash called from the bow. Come take our picture. I raised my camera, capturing them against the sparkling water. They looked so happy, so different from the judgmental siblings who'd mocked my little hobby for years. Perfect shot, I said, but my hand was trembling. Send it to us? Marley asked. I want to post it before we leave. Actually, I started, then stopped as my phone exploded with notifications. Someone had connected the dots. A viral tweet was circulating. Wait, isn't that famous travel blogger on vacation with her family? The same family she said never supported her career? This tea is about to be hot. Everything okay? Nash asked, noticing my expression. Fine, I said quickly, silencing my phone. But it was too late. Marley's phone dinged. She glanced at it, then did a double take. That's weird. Someone just tagged me in a post about some travel blogger's family vacation series. My heart stopped. Oh my God. She continued scrolling. They're saying, wait. She looked up at me, her eyes widening. Zoe? Nash grabbed her phone, reading quickly. This can't be right. It says you're... But that's the blog we've been following, the one with millions of followers. The yacht suddenly felt very small. I can explain, I started, but Marley cut me off. Explain what? That you've been lying to us? That you're actually some kind of famous influencer? I never lied, I defended. You just never bothered to actually look at my work. Nash was frantically searching on his phone now. Holy shit, it's all here, the sponsors, the magazine features, the brand deals. He looked up, face pale. You're making more than I do. A lot more, I admitted quietly. Marley stood up, hands shaking. So this whole trip, all these perfect moments, the photos, it was just content for your blog? No, well, yes, but we were just props to you? Nash's voice cracked. A story for your followers? You don't understand, I tried again. For years, you treated me like a joke, like my dreams were worthless. I wanted to show you. Show us what? Marley demanded. That you could manipulate us, use us for clicks. That I succeeded, I shouted, finally snapping. That while you were mocking my little blog, I was building something huge, something real. The silence that followed was broken only by the waves against the boat. The post goes live tonight, I said quietly. Wanderlust magazine has the exclusive Family Dreams, funded by Fantasy, how a travel blogger gave her skeptical siblings the trip of a lifetime. Take it down, Nash said immediately. I can't. The contracts are signed. Marley laughed bitterly. Contracts, of course. Everything's content for you, isn't it? Even your own family. She turned away, staring at the horizon. Nash just shook his head, walking to the other end of the boat. I sat alone in the middle, my camera heavy in my hands. The perfect lighting, the perfect backdrop, the perfect story. Suddenly, none of it felt perfect anymore. My phone buzzed again. Freddie. How'd they take it? I looked at my siblings, now strangers on opposite ends of the boat I'd booked to capture our perfect family moment. They hate me, I typed back. Was it worth it? I watched as Marley wiped away tears, as Nash deleted photos from his phone. The story would go viral, my following would explode, brands would line up for collaborations. But as we sailed back to shore in silence, I wasn't sure I knew the answer anymore. The flight home was nothing like our excited departure. Marley switched seats to sit far away from me, and Nash kept his noise-canceling headphones on the entire time, pointedly ignoring my existence. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the article went live. The story was everywhere. Travel bloggers' epic revenge, treats dismissive siblings to luxury vacation. Viral, how one influencer proved her worth to doubtful family. The ultimate clapback, inside the most expensive "I told you so" ever. "Turn it off," Nash snapped when he caught me looking at the headlines. "Haven't you documented enough?" I silently put my phone in airplane mode. But the damage was done. Our story was trending on every platform. Back home, I walked into my apartment to find Freddie waiting with takeout and a concerned expression. "That bad, huh?" "Worse." I collapsed onto my couch. "They won't even look at me." My phone rang. Another media request. Good Morning America this time. "They want me to go on tomorrow," I said, staring at the email, "to talk about turning family doubt into digital success. Are you going to do it?" Before I could answer, my door burst open. Marley stormed in, still wearing her travel clothes, with Nash right behind her. "You're trending on Twitter," she screamed, throwing her phone at me. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to my reputation? My clients are calling." "My boss saw it too," Nash added, his voice cold. "Asked if I needed financial advice from my influencer sister." "I never meant," I started. "Never meant what?" Marley cut me off. "To humiliate us? To expose our private moments to millions of strangers? To make us look like villains in your little revenge story? You did that yourselves." I stood up, finally finding my voice. "Every time you mocked my work. Every time you treated me like a failure." "So you set us up," Nash interrupted. "Played us like we were just characters in your content." "No, I wanted you to see." "See what?" Marley's voice cracked. "That our little sister is a manipulative genius? Congratulations, we see it now." Freddie stepped between us. "Maybe everyone should calm down." "Stay out of this," Nash warned. "You probably knew about it all along." "Of course he knew," I said, "because unlike you, he actually supported me. He saw what I was building while you were busy looking down on me." "Building what?" Marley laughed bitterly. "A brand based on exploiting your family?" My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Marley grabbed it before I could stop her. "Join us tomorrow as viral sensation Zoe discusses her groundbreaking series about family redemption," she read aloud. "Redemption? Is that what you're calling this?" "The media's spinning it their way," I tried to explain. "I can decline the interview." "Don't bother," Nash said. "You've already gotten what you wanted. We look like fools, and you're the brilliant success story. That's not—" "You know what the worst part is?" Marley's voice was quiet now. "Those moments on the trip, when we were actually connecting, actually seeing you differently, they were real for us. But for you, they were just content." "They were real for me, too," I protested, tears starting to fall. "Everything I showed you, the hotels, the experiences, that's my real life, the life you never believed I could have. And now everyone knows how stupid we were not to believe in you," Nash said. Message received, loud and clear. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Hope the likes were worth it, Zoe." Marley followed him, but stopped too. "Mom's devastated, by the way. She can't believe her children have become a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons." The door slammed behind them, leaving me standing in my apartment, surrounded by the evidence of my success. Expensive camera equipment, luxury brand gifts, travel memorabilia from around the world, Freddie touched my shoulder gently. Maybe give them some time. Time for what? I wiped my eyes. To forgive me for proving them wrong? For having the career they said I'd never have? My laptop pinged, an email from my agent. The story had broken all previous engagement records. Brands were lining up for partnerships. My follower count was skyrocketing. Congratulations, Freddie said softly. You won. I stared at my screen, at the photos of my siblings looking happy and carefree. Photos I'd carefully crafted to tell my story of triumph. Then why does it feel like I lost everything? My phone lit up again. Good Morning America following up about tomorrow's interview. What are you going to do? Freddie asked. I looked at the last family photo we'd taken in Barcelona before everything fell apart. We were all smiling, genuine smiles, not knowing it was the last time we'd be happy together. I'm going to tell the truth, I said, picking up my phone. All of it, even the parts that don't make me look good. That could hurt your brand. Maybe, I agreed, starting to type my response. But I've already heard something more important. We're live in 3, 2, 1. The producer pointed at me as the cameras started rolling. With us today is travel influencer Zoe, whose recent viral story about treating her skeptical siblings to a luxury European vacation has captured the internet's attention. The host began. Zoe, welcome. I shifted in my chair, ignoring the teleprompter with its suggested talking points about sweet revenge and proving the haters wrong. Thanks for having me, I said, then took a deep breath. But I need to set the record straight. The host's practiced smile flickered. This wasn't the script. I've read the headlines, I continued, about revenge and proving people wrong. But that's not the whole story. Tell us what really happened, she encouraged, recovering quickly. I hurt my family, I said simply. I took their private moments, their trust, and turned it into content. Yes, they doubted my career choice. Yes, they were dismissive. But what I did, I became exactly what they feared, someone who'd sacrifice anything for views. The host glanced nervously at her producers. This wasn't the uplifting success story they'd planned. But your blog, your success, it proved them wrong, didn't it? My success proved I could make money, but the way I handled it proved I could lose my soul doing it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Freddie watching live, or my agent having a meltdown. So you regret the trip? The host pressed. I regret the manipulation, those moments of joy you see in the photos. They were real. My siblings were genuinely happy, genuinely connecting with me, and I ruined it by turning it into a public spectacle. The producer was making frantic cutting motions, but I kept going. To my followers watching this, success isn't worth destroying your relationships. And to my family, I looked directly into the camera. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They cut to commercial break. The host immediately removed her microphone, leaving me alone on set as crew members awkwardly avoided eye contact. My phone was flooded with notifications. My agent had sent 15 texts in a row, the last one reading, "What are you doing? 3 brands already pulled their offers." I turned off my phone and walked out of the studio into the bright morning sun. Freddie was waiting in his car. That was, he started. Career suicide? I finished, buckling my seatbelt. Brave, he corrected. And true. We drove in silence until he suddenly turned down a familiar street. This isn't the way to my apartment. No, he agreed. It's the way to your mom's house. My heart stopped. Freddie, no. They're all there, he said quietly. Marley texted me during your interview. They watched it together. And they want to talk. Minutes later, I stood on my mother's porch, hand frozen before the doorbell. Before I could decide whether to run, the door opened. Mom stood there, eyes red but soft. Without a word, she pulled me into a hug. Inside, Marley and Nash sat at the kitchen table, an open laptop between them, showing a replay of my interview. "Hi," I managed weakly. Nash spoke first. "Did you mean it? What you said on TV?" "Every word. You tanked your brand for us," Marley said, not quite a question. "Turns out my brand isn't worth my family." I sat down heavily at the table. I got so caught up in proving myself, I forgot who I was proving it to. "We watched your whole blog series this morning," Nash said. "All your old posts, too." "You're actually really good," Marley added. "Like, really good. We just never looked before," Nash finished, "because it was easier to assume you were failing than admit we might be wrong." Mom set coffee cups in front of us, just like she used to when we needed to talk through problems as kids. "I should have shown you my success differently," I said. "Not as a weapon. And we should have supported you from the start." Marley reached across the table, taking my hand. "God, Zoe, you've built something amazing. Those hotel partnerships, the brand deals." "The writing," Nash added. "Your Rome series made me cry. Don't tell anyone I said that." A laugh bubbled up, surprising all of us. Soon we were all laughing, the tension breaking like a fever. "So what now?" Mom asked, sitting down with us. "What happens to your blog?" I looked at my siblings, seeing them clearly for the first time in years. "That depends. How do you feel about a follow-up series? The real story this time, about family, forgiveness, and finding success without losing yourself." "Only if you let us read it first," Marley smiled. "And maybe teach us some of those photography tricks," Nash added. "Deal," I said, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "But first, I need to know, was the trip actually good before everything blew up?" They exchanged looks, then Marley grinned. "It was perfect. Even better knowing our little sister made it happen." "Through talent and hard work," Nash emphasized. Mom squeezed my shoulder. "Now that's the story you should be telling." "Ready?" I adjusted the camera settings, checking the lighting one last time. "As ready as we'll ever be," Nash said, straightening his tie while Marley touched up her lipstick. We were back in Mom's kitchen, where everything had fallen apart and come back together. The familiar wooden table was set for Sunday dinner, just like always, but this time, my professional camera equipment surrounded us. "Remember," I said, "just be natural. Tell your truth." "Our truth," Marley corrected, squeezing my hand. I pressed record. "So, tell me about the moment you realized your little sister was actually a successful travel blogger." Nash laughed. "Oh, God. I was checking my stock portfolio in Barcelona when my boss texted asking if I needed financial advice from you." "Talk about a wake-up call." "For me," Marley added, "it was earlier. Remember that restaurant in Rome? The owner knew you, and I finally started putting the pieces together. All those coincidences weren't coincidences at all." Mom appeared in frame with a steaming lasagna. "I knew long before either of you. I'd been secretly following her blog for months." "Mom!" We all turned to stare at her. She shrugged, setting down the dish. "What? You think I didn't Google my own daughter? I just figured she'd tell us when she was ready." "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked, momentarily forgetting I was supposed to be behind the camera. "Sometimes mothers have to let their children fight their own battles," she said wisely, "even when we see them making mistakes." "Speaking of mistakes," Nash leaned forward, "can we talk about how spectacularly I failed as a big brother?" "We both did," Marley agreed. "We were so busy being successful in our own lanes, we couldn't see you building something incredible in yours." I swallowed hard, keeping the camera steady. "And I was so busy proving you wrong, I forgot about proving myself right. The comments on your new blog post are insane." Nash pulled out his phone. "Listen to this one. Finally, an influencer telling the real story about family, success, and redemption. No filters, just truth." The brands are coming back too, Marley added. Turns out authenticity sells better than revenge. Mom started serving the lasagna, the same recipe she'd made the night I first mentioned the European trip. You know what I love most about this new series? You're all working on it together. She was right. After my TV confession, something had shifted. Marley had offered her legal expertise for my contracts. Nash had started helping with my investment strategy, and I was teaching them both about social media, watching them discover a world they'd dismissed for so long. Okay, final question, I said, adjusting the frame to include all of us. What would you tell other families dealing with doubt and different definitions of success? Look closer, Nash said immediately. That thing you think is just your sister's hobby might be the next big thing. Support each other, Marley added. Success doesn't look the same for everyone. Mom smiled, passing the garlic bread. And remember that family is more important than followers. I set the camera to auto record and joined them at the table. You know, this isn't the ending I planned for my viral series. It's better, Marley said. It's real. Speaking of real, Nash pulled an envelope from his jacket. We have something for you. Inside was a printed itinerary. I recognized the format. It was from my favorite luxury hotel chain. What's this? We're taking you on vacation, Marley explained. All of us, no hidden agendas, no secret blog posts, just family. But I stared at the booking. This is expensive. Well, Nash grinned. Turns out when your sister is a famous influencer, you can get pretty good deals. Plus, Marley added, we've been saving up. Time to invest in what really matters. Mom raised her wine glass. To new beginnings? We clinked glasses, and I didn't even reach for my camera to capture the moment. Some things were better lived than documented. Oh, Nash suddenly remembered something. Tell her about the call you got this morning, Marley. My sister grinned. Netflix wants to option your story. They think it could make an interesting documentary about social media, family dynamics, and redemption. What did you tell them? I told them they'd have to talk to my sister's legal team. That's me, by the way. I'm your legal team now. And I'll handle the financial negotiations, Nash added. I looked around the table at my family, really looked at them. No camera lens, no filter, no agenda, just us, together, finally seeing each other clearly. So, Mom passed the salad. Where are we going on this family vacation? Actually, I smiled, I have some ideas about that. But this time, we'll plan it together. The camera kept rolling, capturing our laughter, our plans, our reconciliation. But the real story, the one that mattered most, was happening off-screen, around a simple kitchen table, over Mom's lasagna, and endless possibilities.
The sound of wine glasses clinking and laughter filled my living room until my mother-in-law's sharp voice cut through the joy like a knife through butter. Really, Sadie? A slumber party at your age? Don't you think it's time to grow up? I'm Sadie, a children's book author, and at 32, I was hosting what had become a monthly tradition with my closest friends. We'd spread blankets on the floor, open a few bottles of wine, and share stories late into the night. It was my escape, my sanctuary, at least until Elizabeth decided to make an unannounced visit. Elizabeth, I scrambled to my feet, nearly knocking over my wine glass. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow's dinner. She stood in my doorway, perfectly coiffed as always, her designer handbag hanging from her arm like a shield of superiority. Clearly, I thought I'd surprise Cole, but I see he's not here. He's working late at the office, I explained, watching my friends exchange uncomfortable glances. Would you like to join us? Join what exactly? This juvenile display? Elizabeth's eyes swept across my living room, taking in the scattered pillows, half-empty pizza boxes, and my friends in their pajamas. I suppose this is what happens when you spend your days writing children's stories instead of pursuing a real career. Ava, my best friend since college, stood up. Actually, Sadie's latest book just hit the bestseller list. Oh yes, I heard. Elizabeth's smile didn't reach her eyes. A story about a purple unicorn who can't fly. How profound. My cheeks burned. Rainbow the unicorn helps children understand it's okay to be different. Different is one word for it. Elizabeth set her bag down with deliberate precision. When Cole married you, I had hoped you'd eventually pursue something more substantial. A law degree, perhaps, or medical school. Instead, you're having pajama parties and writing about magical horses. Madison, Elizabeth's own niece, spoke up from her spot on the floor. "Aunt Elizabeth, that's not fair." "Life isn't fair, dear," Elizabeth cut her off. "And enabling this behavior isn't helping anyone, especially not Sadie." I felt something snap inside me. 6 years of biting my tongue, of smiling through her backhanded compliments and thinly veiled insults, finally reached a breaking point. My behavior? I stepped forward, my voice steadier than I felt. "You mean my successful career as an author? My marriage to your son, which has never been happier? Or maybe you're referring to these monthly gatherings where I maintain meaningful friendships instead of judging others from my moral high ground?" The room fell silent. Elizabeth's face tightened, that familiar look of disapproval deepening the lines around her mouth. "I see Cole's absence has made you bold," she said quietly. "But someone needs to speak truth here. You're living in a fantasy world, Sadie. Writing children's books is a hobby, not a career. And these," she gestured to my friends, "little gatherings are hardly the mark of a mature woman." "Get out." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." My hands were shaking, but my voice remained firm. "This is my home, and these are my friends. You don't get to come in here uninvited and insult us. Not anymore." Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. "I'll be sure to tell Cole about this warm welcome when I see him tomorrow." "Please do," I replied. "Tell him exactly how you showed up unannounced to criticize his wife's career and friendships. I'm sure he'd love to hear all about it." She gathered her bag with rigid dignity. "Well, I can see this evening is a waste of everyone's time. I'll see you all tomorrow at dinner. Try to dress appropriately, Sadie. No unicorn pajamas." After she left, the silence lingered until Ava whispered, "Holy shit, Sadie." I collapsed onto the couch, my heart pounding. I just kicked out my mother-in-law. Madison crawled over and squeezed my hand. "She deserved it. You know that, right?" I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead to tomorrow's dinner. Elizabeth would never let this go. She'd find a way to twist it, to make me look like the villain. Unless... I need to find something, I heard myself say. Something that will make her understand she's not as perfect as she thinks she is. Ava topped off my wine glass. "What did you have in mind?" I took a long sip, remembering a conversation I'd overheard at last year's family reunion. Something about Elizabeth's past, a scandal that was quickly hushed up. "I don't know yet, but I'm done letting her make me feel small. It's time she learned what it feels like to be on the receiving end of judgment." Looking back, that was the moment everything changed. I didn't know it then, but my decision to stand up to Elizabeth would unravel a secret she'd kept buried for decades and change our family forever. The town library's basement archive smelled like old paper and secrets. I'd been researching local history for my next children's book when Madison's text from last week's slumber party caught my eye. "Remember what Uncle Teddy mentioned about Aunt Elizabeth at last year's reunion? Check the summer of 1975. Need any help?" Carol, the elderly librarian, peered over my shoulder at the stack of newspapers. "Just browsing," I said, but something made me add, "though I am curious about any society columns from the summer of 75, particularly around the country club." Carol's eyes lit up. "Oh, that was quite a summer. The scandal with the Snyder family." She trailed off, catching herself. But I shouldn't gossip. My heart quickened. "The Snyder family? Let me fetch those archives for you, dear." She disappeared between the shelves, returning with a heavy-bound volume. Lawrence Snyder was quite the talk of the town back then. Such a shame about his engagement. I flipped through the yellowed pages until a familiar face stopped me cold. There, in a grainy black-and-white photo, stood a young Elizabeth at some garden party. But it wasn't her presence that made my hands shake. It was the way she was looking at the man beside her, their bodies angled toward each other with unmistakable intimacy. The caption read, "Lawrence Snyder and fiancée Margaret attend the annual summer solstice ball." "Margaret," I whispered. Carol nodded. "Lawrence's fiancée. They were supposed to get married that August, but..." She glanced around conspiratorially. Well, let's just say the wedding never happened. I dug deeper, finding more photos, more stories. Elizabeth appeared in several, always hovering near Lawrence, always with that same look of barely concealed longing. My phone buzzed. Madison. Find anything interesting? You could say that, I typed back. Your aunt had quite the summer romance. Meet me at Joe's Coffee in 20. There's more. 20 minutes later, I slid into a booth across from Madison, who was already nursing a latte. Spill, I said. She leaned forward. Mom told me the story years ago. Lawrence and Elizabeth were having an affair that whole summer. Everyone knew, but nobody talked about it openly. Then Margaret caught them together at the boathouse. What happened? The engagement was called off, obviously. Lawrence left town, Margaret moved to Boston, and Elizabeth... Madison stirred her coffee thoughtfully. She married Uncle Richard 3 months later. My mom says she's spent the last 40 years pretending it never happened. I sat back, processing. Does Cole know? No one in our generation knows except me. The family buried it deep. Madison's eyes met mine. But Lawrence moved back to town last month. He bought that big house on Maple Street. My phone buzzed again. Cole. Mom's still upset about last night. Says you were disrespectful. I showed Madison the text. Your aunt's spent years judging me for not being proper enough, for not fitting her image of the perfect daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, she's been hiding this all along. What are you going to do? I thought about every snide comment, every disapproving look, every time Elizabeth had made me feel less than worthy. The family reunion's this weekend. Maybe it's time for some truth-telling. Sadie. Madison's voice held a warning note. Be careful. This could blow up in your face. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said, realizing as I spoke that it was true. I just want her to stop acting so superior, to acknowledge that she's human too. And if Cole gets angry, he deserves to know who his mother really is. I pulled out my notebook, jotting down details. Do you think Lawrence would talk to me? Madison's eyes widened. You're not seriously going to... I'm going to visit him tomorrow. I closed my notebook with determination. Elizabeth needs to understand she can't keep judging others while pretending her own past doesn't exist. This is going to be explosive, Madison warned, but I've got your back. And honestly, maybe it's time someone stood up to Aunt Elizabeth. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. The annual Hudson family reunion was famous for its drama, but this year would be different. This year, the perfect Elizabeth would finally face her own imperfections. My phone rang. Cole again. Hey, love. Everything okay? Mom seemed pretty upset when she called. Everything's fine, I said, thinking of the photos in the archive. But honey, we need to talk when you get home. There's something you should know about your mother. The silence on the other end lasted a moment too long. What kind of something? The kind that explains a lot about why she is the way she is. I pulled into our driveway, seeing our house lights glowing warmly in the dusk. And maybe, if we're lucky, the kind that might finally change things between us. The Hudson estate loomed before us, its manicured lawns dotted with relatives in their Sunday best. Cole squeezed my hand as we walked up the driveway. After our talk last night, he'd been unusually quiet. You okay? I asked. Still processing, he murmured. I just can't believe my mother would... Cole! Sadie! Elizabeth's voice rang out across the lawn, artificially bright. She swept toward us in a powder blue dress, arms outstretched. You're late. Traffic, Cole said, accepting her hug stiffly. Elizabeth's smile tightened when she turned to me. Sadie, dear, I trust you're feeling more... mature today? Before I could respond, Teddy appeared with a tray of champagne. First round's up. Who needs a drink? God, yes, Cole muttered, grabbing 2 glasses and handing one to me. We made our way through the crowd of relatives, exchanging pleasantries. I spotted Madison by the buffet table, deep in conversation with her mother. She caught my eye and gave a subtle nod, our signal that Lawrence had indeed accepted her invitation to stop by later. Sadie, Ava called out, waving from a cluster of younger cousins. Come here, we're telling embarrassing stories about our significant others. I started toward her, but Elizabeth's hand caught my arm. A word, dear? She steered me toward a quiet corner of the garden. About the other night. Elizabeth, Let me finish. Her perfectly manicured nails dug slightly into my arm. I've been thinking about what you said, about your career. Perhaps I was hasty in my judgment. I blinked, thrown off guard. Really? Indeed. After all, someone needs to write those little books. She patted my hand condescendingly. And you seem to have found your level. The familiar anger bubbled up. My level? Sadie, Madison's voice cut through the tension. Aunt Elizabeth, sorry to interrupt, but Uncle Richard's looking for you. Something about the catering? Elizabeth's lips pursed. We'll continue this later, dear. She glided away, leaving the scent of expensive perfume in her wake. Madison waited until she was out of earshot. He's here. Lawrence just pulled up. My heart jumped. Does Elizabeth know? Not yet. He's waiting in the garden house. Madison glanced around nervously. Are you sure about this? I watched Elizabeth across the lawn, holding court among her admirers, more sure than ever. The garden house was a small Victorian structure, filled with potted plants and wicker furniture. Lawrence stood when we entered, and I was struck by how distinguished he looked, tall and silver-haired with kind eyes. You must be Sadie, he said, extending his hand. Madison explained everything. Thank you for coming, I said. I know this must be awkward. He smiled sadly. Less awkward than 40 years of pretending it never happened. He sat down, gesturing for us to join him. I assume you have questions. Just one, really. I leaned forward. Why did you come back? Unfinished business. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Letters. Elizabeth wrote them that summer. I thought she might want them back. Madison gasped softly. You kept them? All this time? Some stories don't end. They just pause. He handed me the envelope. Use them wisely, Sadie. Elizabeth isn't the villain you think she is. I don't think she's a villain, I said. I just want her to stop acting like she's perfect. A commotion outside made us all freeze. Through the window, I saw Elizabeth standing on the path, her face draining of color as she stared at the garden house. Lawrence? Her voice carried through the glass, barely a whisper. He stood, straightening his jacket. That's my cue. Wait, I started, but he was already moving toward the door. Elizabeth, he said simply as he stepped outside. The garden fell silent. Relatives stopped mid-conversation, drinks halfway to their lips, watching the scene unfold. What are you doing here? Elizabeth's voice shook. Uncle Richard invited me. Lawrence's voice was gentle. It's been a long time, Lizzie. The childhood nickname seemed to break something in Elizabeth. She took a step backward, then another. I have to. She turned and fled toward the house. Mom, Cole called after her, but she didn't stop. I emerged from the garden house, the envelope heavy in my hands. Cole looked at me, then at Lawrence, understanding dawning on his face. Is this what you were planning? He asked quietly. Not exactly, I admitted, but maybe it's better this way. Teddy appeared beside us, looking worried. Elizabeth's locked herself in the study. Richard's trying to talk to her. Madison touched my arm. What now? I looked down at the envelope, thinking of Elizabeth's face when she saw Lawrence. For the first time, I'd seen real emotion crack through her perfect facade. Not just shock or anger, but pain. Deep, decades-old pain. Now, I said, we wait. The truth's already out there. The rest is up to her. The party continued around us, but the atmosphere had shifted. Everyone was watching, waiting, wondering what would happen when Elizabeth finally emerged from the study. And I realized, with a sudden clarity, that this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about something much more complicated. The study door remained closed for an hour before Cole finally had enough. I need to talk to her, he said, pulling away from where we'd been sitting in the garden. I followed him, the envelope of letters still clutched in my hand. Wait, let me come with you. Inside the house, we found Richard slumped in a hallway chair. She won't open the door, he said, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Not even for me. Cole knocked softly. Mom, it's me. Silence. Mom, please, we need to talk about this. The lock clicked. The door opened just enough for Elizabeth's voice to drift out. Just you, Cole. He glanced at me apologetically, but I shook my head. No, I said firmly, stepping forward. All of us. No more secrets. A long pause followed before the door swung open. Elizabeth sat behind the massive oak desk, her makeup perfectly intact despite everything. Only her white-knuckled grip on a crystal tumbler betrayed her distress. "I suppose you're enjoying this," she said to me, her voice brittle. "Actually, no." I placed the envelope on her desk. "These belong to you." Her hand trembled as she touched the yellowed paper. "Where did you—" "Lawrence kept them, all these years." Cole moved closer to his mother. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Tell you what?" Elizabeth's laugh was harsh. "That your mother was the town's scandal? That I nearly destroyed 2 families with my foolishness?" "That you're human," I said quietly. "That you made mistakes, just like everyone else." She looked up sharply. "Is that what this is about? Teaching me a lesson?" "At first, yes." I met her gaze steadily. "I wanted you to feel as small as you've made me feel all these years. But seeing you with Lawrence today," I shook my head. "This isn't about revenge anymore." "Then what is it about?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Understanding." Cole pulled up a chair beside her desk. "Mom, you've spent my whole life pushing everyone to be perfect, to live up to some impossible standard. Was it because you were trying to make up for what happened?" Elizabeth's hand shook as she opened the envelope, pulling out the first letter. Her own youthful handwriting stared back at her. "I was so young," she whispered, "so sure I knew what love was supposed to be." "What happened?" Cole asked gently. "Lawrence was engaged to Margaret. It wasn't planned. But we fell in love." She touched the letter softly. "When Margaret found out, the scandal nearly ruined both families. Your grandfather gave me a choice: marry Richard, who had always cared for me, or be cut off completely." "So you chose security," I said. "I chose survival." Elizabeth's eyes met mine. "And I've spent 40 years making sure no one could ever question my choices again. Including you, Sadie." The truth of it hung in the air between us. "But Mom," Cole said, "pushing everyone away, demanding perfection, it hasn't made you happy?" "No," she admitted quietly. "It hasn't." A knock at the door made us all turn. Madison stood there with Lawrence. "I'm sorry," he said. "I shouldn't have come." Elizabeth stood so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. "Why did you come back?" "Because I never stopped wondering, what if?" He stepped into the room. "Because I thought maybe, after all these years, we could at least stop pretending it never happened." "I can't do this," Elizabeth whispered, but she didn't move away when he approached the desk. "You don't have to do anything," he said gently, "but maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself and everyone around you for choices made 40 years ago." I touched Cole's arm. "We should give them privacy." As we turned to leave, Elizabeth's voice stopped us. "Sadie." I looked back. "I'm sorry," she said, and for the first time since I'd known her, there wasn't a trace of judgment in her eyes. "For everything." In the hallway, Cole pulled me close. "Did that really just happen?" "I think it did." I leaned into him, emotionally drained. "What happens now?" "Now?" Richard's voice made us jump. He stood from his chair, straightening his jacket. "Now we go back to the party and give them time to talk. Some conversations are 40 years overdue." As we walked back to the garden, I heard Elizabeth's laugh drift through the study window, not her usual controlled social laugh, but something real and unexpected. Madison fell into step beside us. "Well, that was intense. Think she'll be okay?" I asked. "I think," Cole said slowly, "that my mother might finally let herself be something better than okay. She might let herself be real." The party continued around us, but something had shifted. The perfect facade of the Hudson family had cracked, and through those cracks, something more authentic was beginning to shine through. I squeezed Cole's hand, thinking about the power of hidden truths and the courage it takes to face them. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's forcing someone to finally be honest with themselves. The annual family toast was a Hudson tradition, and despite everything that had happened, Elizabeth insisted on maintaining it. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the lawn, the family gathered around the garden terrace. "Where is she?" Cole whispered, scanning the crowd. "Still in the study with Lawrence," Madison replied, "but Uncle Richard just went to get them." Moments later, Elizabeth emerged, Lawrence a respectful distance behind her. Her hair was slightly mussed, her eyes rimmed red, but she held herself with the same regal posture as always. Richard handed her a champagne glass, and she stepped up to the terrace steps. "I'd like to propose a toast," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering. But then she paused, her practiced smile faltering. The silence stretched uncomfortably until I found myself stepping forward. "Actually, Elizabeth, may I?" She looked at me with surprise, then gave a small nod. I raised my glass, heart pounding. "To family," I said. "Not the perfect version we pretend to be, but the real, messy, complicated people we are." Elizabeth's hand trembled slightly on her glass. "To the mistakes that shape us," I continued, "and the courage it takes to face them." I met Elizabeth's eyes. "To second chances, and the wisdom to recognize when it's time to let go of old masks." "To second chances," Lawrence echoed softly from the back. Elizabeth's composure cracked. I need to say something." She stepped forward, her voice unsteady. "For years, I've stood here giving toasts about family values and proper behavior. But today," she looked around at the faces watching her. "Today, I need to tell the truth." A murmur rippled through the crowd. 40 years ago, I made choices that hurt people I cared about. Her eyes found Lawrence's. "I've spent decades trying to be perfect to make up for it, and in doing so, I've hurt others." She turned to me, especially those who reminded me that perfection is impossible. Cole squeezed my hand. "Sadie," Elizabeth said, "I owe you an apology. A real one, not the hollow words I offered earlier. Your authenticity, your willingness to be yourself, it threatened me because it reminded me of who I used to be. Before I buried that part of myself under rules and expectations. I hadn't expected this. Elizabeth, please let me finish." She straightened her shoulders. "I've been horrible to you. I've criticized your career, your choices, your very nature. But the truth is, you've achieved something I never could. The courage to be genuinely yourself." Tears pricked at my eyes as she continued. "So yes, let's toast to second chances." Elizabeth raised her glass again. "To letting go of perfect facades. To my remarkable daughter-in-law, who had the courage to force me to face my past. And to everyone I've hurt with my judgment and criticism, I am truly sorry." The garden was silent except for a few sniffles. "Mom," Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. Elizabeth turned to him. "And to you, my son, I'm sorry for never telling you the truth, for making you think you had to be perfect to be loved." Lawrence stepped forward then, and the crowd parted for him. "To Elizabeth," he said quietly, "who was always perfect exactly as she was." Richard cleared his throat. "To my wife," he added, "whom I've loved through all her imperfections, just as she's loved through mine." Glasses clinked as the toasts rippled through the family. I watched as decades of tension seemed to dissolve in the fading sunlight. Elizabeth made her way to me through the crowd. "I suppose you think I deserved this public confession." "Actually," I said, "I think you deserve the chance to finally be free of it." She studied me for a long moment. "You know, I always wondered why Cole chose you. Now I understand. You see people for who they really are, don't you?" "I try to. Even when they're being absolutely awful to you?" "Especially then," I smiled. "Usually means they're hiding something." Elizabeth laughed, a real laugh, like the one I'd heard from the study. "Well, you certainly figured me out." She touched my arm gently. "I can't promise I'll change overnight. Old habits. Die hard?" I finished. "That's okay, I'm not going anywhere." "No," she said softly. "I suppose you're not." She glanced over at Lawrence, who was deep in conversation with Richard. None of us can change the past, but perhaps we can stop letting it poison the present. As the party continued around us, I watched Elizabeth move through the crowd, stopping to speak quietly with various family members. She was different now, softer somehow, more human. The perfect mask had cracked, and underneath, I caught glimpses of the young woman from those old photographs, the one who knew how to love freely and laugh without restraint. Maybe that was the real revenge, not destroying someone's facade, but helping them remember who they were before they built it. As twilight settled over the garden, small groups formed and reformed, decades of family secrets suddenly finding their way into the open. I sat with Madison and Ava on the terrace steps, watching the aftermath of Elizabeth's confession unfold. "Did you see Aunt Margaret's face during the toast?" Madison whispered, nodding toward a stern-faced woman in navy blue. "I thought she was going to explode." "Wait, that's Margaret." I straightened up. "Lawrence's ex-fiancée? The one and only." Ava leaned in. "Apparently, she RSVPs to every family event, but hasn't actually shown up in years. Until today." Margaret stood alone, clutching her wine glass like a weapon as she watched Elizabeth and Lawrence talking quietly by the rose garden. "Should someone do something?" I asked. "Too late," Madison muttered as Margaret began striding toward them. "Well, well." Margaret's voice carried across the garden. "Quite the performance, Elizabeth. 40 years of pretending to be better than everyone, and now suddenly you're Mother Teresa?" Elizabeth turned slowly. "Margaret, I didn't know you were here." "Clearly." Margaret's laugh was bitter. "I wouldn't have missed this for the world. The great Elizabeth Hudson, finally admitting she's just as flawed as the rest of us." Lawrence stepped forward. "Margaret, please." "Oh, don't Margaret, please me." She jabbed a finger at his chest. "You don't get to play peacemaker, not after what you two did." Cole appeared beside me. "Should we intervene?" "No," I said, touching his arm. "I think this needs to happen." Elizabeth squared her shoulders. "You're right, Margaret. What we did was unforgivable." "Unforgivable?" Margaret's voice rose. "Do you have any idea what it was like? The whispers, the pitying looks, having to leave town because I couldn't bear to see you playing happy families with Richard?" "I know," Elizabeth said quietly. "And I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but for spending 40 years pretending I was somehow morally superior to make up for it. Sorry doesn't erase the past." "No," Lawrence said, "it doesn't. But maybe it's time we all stopped letting the past control our present." Margaret turned on him. "Easy for you to say. You got to leave. Start fresh." "Fresh?" Lawrence's laugh was hollow. "I've spent 40 years wondering if I made the biggest mistake of my life. There's nothing fresh about that." A crowd had gathered now, watching the drama unfold. Richard stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Margaret," he said gently, "we were all young, we all made mistakes. But carrying this anger, it's only hurting you." "How can you defend them?" she demanded. "She betrayed me, he humiliated me, and you just married her anyway." "Yes," Richard nodded, "because I loved her. Even knowing everything. Sometimes love means accepting people's imperfections." Elizabeth reached for his hand, tears in her eyes. "It's easy to hold on to anger," I found myself saying, stepping forward. "Trust me, I know. I've spent years angry at Elizabeth for making me feel less than worthy." Elizabeth flinched. "But today," I continued, "I saw something different. I saw someone brave enough to finally face their mistakes, to apologize, to try to make things right." Margaret's hands trembled. "I don't know how to let it go." "Then don't," Lawrence said. "Not all at once. But maybe start by sharing a drink with old friends. Talk about what really happened. Let us apologize properly." "We owe you that much," Elizabeth added. "All of us do." Margaret looked between them, decades of pain visible in her expression. Finally, her shoulders sagged. "I suppose 40 years is a long time to be angry." "Come," Richard said, gesturing toward the house. "Let's talk in the study, all of us." As they walked away, Cole wrapped his arm around me. "How did this become so complicated?" "Family usually is," Madison said, appearing beside us. "But you know what? I think this needed to happen. All of it." Ava nodded. "Sometimes you have to break something completely to fix it properly." We watched as the four of them disappeared into the house. The party continued around us, but there was a different energy now, as if a heavy cloud had finally lifted. "You know," Cole said thoughtfully, "I've never seen my mother look so real." "Real is good," I replied, thinking of all the times Elizabeth had criticized me for being too authentic, too unpolished. "Real means there's hope." Madison raised her glass. "To real families?" "To real families," we echoed. As the stars began to appear above us, I thought about how revenge had transformed into something else entirely. Instead of exposing Elizabeth's past to hurt her, we'd somehow created space for healing, not just for her, but for everyone touched by that long-ago summer. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy us. Sometimes it sets us free. The study door opened an hour later, and the four of them emerged looking exhausted but somehow lighter. Elizabeth's eyes were red, but she was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. Margaret walked beside her, their shoulders almost touching. "Sadie," Elizabeth called out, "could you join us for a moment?" I followed them into the study where Lawrence and Richard were already pouring fresh drinks. The tension from earlier had transformed into something more contemplative. "We've been talking," Elizabeth said, settling into an armchair, "about the past, about mistakes, about forgiveness." She looked at Margaret. "And about judgment." Margaret nodded. "Elizabeth told me how she's treated you over the years." "It's fine," I started. "No," Elizabeth cut in sharply. "It's not fine. I transferred my guilt onto you, Sadie. I saw in you everything I'd lost, that freedom to be genuine, to follow your heart without fear of judgment, and instead of admiring it, I tried to crush it." "The way people tried to crush us," Lawrence added quietly. "The way I helped crush you," Margaret said, surprising me. "After everything came out, I made sure everyone knew what horrible people you were. I wanted you to suffer like I had suffered." Elizabeth reached for her hand. "We deserved it." "No," Margaret shook her head. "No one deserves to be destroyed by their mistakes. I see that now." She turned to me. "Which is why we wanted to talk to you." Richard cleared his throat. "We've all been part of a cycle of judgment and revenge. It needs to stop." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying," Elizabeth stood, approaching me, "that I want to make things right. Really right. Not just with an apology, but with actions." She pulled out a folder from her desk. "I've been working on something, a children's book about forgiveness and second chances, about a little girl who learns that the scary witch next door is just a lonely woman with a sad story." I stared at her. "You're writing a children's book?" "Well," she smiled sheepishly, "I was hoping you might help me write it. Maybe collaborate?" The room spun slightly. "You want to write a book with me?" "Who better?" Lawrence chuckled. "You understand both sides of this story better than anyone. Plus," Margaret added, "it might help other families avoid 40 years of pain and misunderstanding." I looked at the folder, then at Elizabeth. "You're serious about this?" "Completely." She took my hands in hers. "Sadie, you came here wanting revenge, but you gave me something far more valuable, the courage to be honest, to face my past, to stop hiding behind perfection." Tears welled in my eyes. "I didn't expect this." "None of us did," Richard said warmly. "But sometimes the unexpected is exactly what we need." A knock at the door interrupted us. Cole poked his head in. "Everything okay in here?" "More than okay," I said, wiping my eyes. "Your mother just asked me to collaborate on a children's book with her." His jaw dropped. "Mom, you're writing a book?" "Well," Elizabeth laughed, "I thought it was time to try something new, something real." Margaret raised her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," we echoed. As we rejoined the party outside, the evening had taken on an almost magical quality. The garden lights twinkled, and the tension that had characterized so many family gatherings had dissolved into genuine warmth. I watched as Elizabeth moved through the crowd, stopping to have real conversations instead of making polite small talk. She hugged people she'd previously only nodded to, laughed openly at jokes she would have once found inappropriate. "You know what's amazing?" Cole said, sliding his arm around my waist. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm seeing my actual mother, not just the role she's been playing." "It's beautiful," I whispered. Across the garden, Elizabeth was showing her manuscript to Ava, gesturing animatedly as she described her idea. Ava caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. Madison appeared with fresh champagne. "So, a children's book about forgiveness, huh? That's quite a plot twist." "Life's full of them," I said, watching as Lawrence and Richard shared a laugh by the buffet table, decades of potential awkwardness dissolved by honest conversation. "You did this," Cole said softly. "You broke the cycle." I shook my head. "We all did. Sometimes it takes a whole family to heal a wound." As if hearing us, Elizabeth looked up and smiled. Not her society smile, not her perfect hostess smile, but the smile of a woman who had finally laid down her armor and found herself stronger without it. The revenge I'd planned had transformed into something far more powerful: redemption. Not just for Elizabeth, but for all of us who had been caught in the web of old secrets and unspoken pain. Sometimes the best endings aren't about getting even, they're about getting honest. The final guests were leaving as dawn's first light touched the horizon. Elizabeth and I sat on the terrace steps, sharing the last bottle of champagne, watching as Lawrence helped Margaret into her car. "They're going to have coffee tomorrow," Elizabeth said softly. "Start working through things properly." "Are you okay with that?" She smiled, touching the manuscript in her lap. "You know, for the first time in decades, I actually am. Some loves aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to teach us something." "And what did you learn?" "That perfection is the enemy of happiness." She turned to face me. "Sadie, when you first married Cole, I saw this vibrant, authentic young woman who refused to fit into the mold I'd created for our family. It terrified me. Because I reminded you of yourself before everything happened. Because you were everything I'd forced myself to stop being." She traced the edge of her glass. "Watching you stand up to me, refuse to be diminished. It was like looking into a mirror of my younger self, the self I betrayed." Cole appeared in the doorway. "Mom, Dad's looking for you. Something about breakfast plans with the out-of-town relatives." "Just a moment," Elizabeth called back. She pulled an old photograph from between the pages of her manuscript and handed it to me. It showed a young woman in a sundress, laughing at something off camera, her whole face alive with joy. "Is this me? The summer everything changed." Elizabeth's voice was soft. "I want you to have it." "Why?" "Because you gave me back that girl. Not through revenge, but through refusing to let me hide behind my perfect facade." She squeezed my hand. "The book we're going to write, it's not just about forgiveness. It's about remembering who we really are." "Elizabeth, call me Mom," she said suddenly. "If you want to, that is." Tears sprang to my eyes. "I'd like that," Richard's voice carried from inside. "Lizzie, the breakfast arrangements?" "Coming, dear?" She stood, straightening her dress. "Oh, and Sadie, those monthly slumber parties of yours?" I tensed slightly, remembering how this had all started. "Next time, I'd like to bring the wine, if I'm invited." A laugh bubbled up from my chest. "Really? Well, someone needs to teach your friends about proper vintages." Her eyes twinkled. "Besides, I have 40 years of real stories to share." As she walked inside, Cole took her place beside me. "Did my mother just invite herself to your slumber party?" "Apparently." I showed him the photograph. "She gave me this." He studied it, smiling. "I've never seen her look so free. Maybe we'll see it more often now." Inside, we could hear Elizabeth laughing with Richard about something. The sound was unrestrained, genuine, the laugh of a woman who had finally put down the weight of perfection. Madison and Ava joined us on the steps, looking sleepy but content. "So," Ava yawned, "mission accomplished?" I thought about my original plan for revenge, how I'd wanted to expose Elizabeth's past to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. Instead, we'd all found something more valuable: truth, understanding, and the courage to be imperfect. "Not exactly," I said. "Something better happened." "Yeah." Madison nodded toward the house, where Elizabeth was now animatedly describing our book idea to Richard. "We got our aunt back, the real one." The sun rose higher, painting the garden in soft morning light. Lawrence's car was long gone, Margaret's too. The letters that had started all this lay forgotten in Elizabeth's desk drawer. Their power to hurt finally faded. "You know what this means, right?" Cole grinned. "Family dinners are going to be a lot more interesting from now on." "Good," I said, leaning against him. "I like interesting." Elizabeth appeared in the doorway again. "Sadie, I've been thinking about the book. What if our witch character isn't really a witch at all? What if she's just someone who built walls to protect herself from getting hurt?" I smiled, recognizing the metaphor. "I think that's perfect." "Perfect?" She laughed. "Oh no, dear, not perfect. Real. That's so much better." As the morning light filled the garden, I watched Elizabeth, my mother-in-law, my former nemesis, my future co-author, begin to sketch out ideas for our story. Her face was animated, her guard completely down, showing the woman she'd always been beneath the carefully constructed facade. Sometimes revenge doesn't look anything like what we planned. Sometimes it looks like healing, like truth, like second chances. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, it looks like a fresh start for everyone involved. I picked up my glass, raising it one final time. To being real? To being real, they all echoed, as the new day dawned bright and full of possibility.